15. That summer. Wyatt whistled as he loped home from working all day at the boatyard. He was making good money. He was in love with Ariel, and he believed she loved him. Soon they would be back in Missouri, and Wyatt would have this beautiful woman waiting for him at home while he focused on his work. In his mind, he organized his classroom lectures. He couldn't wait for Ariel to meet his father. The Sand Palace was quiet. Wyatt went down the hall and took a long shower. That was one good thing about working with boats. It felt so good to stand under hot water, washing off the grease and oil and dirt. He brushed his teeth and shaved so he wouldn't have to in the morning. He wrapped a towel around his middle, stepped into his flip-flops, and opened the bathroom door. Steam billowed out into the hall. He was returning to his own room when he ran into Ariel. "You smell good," she said. She was all dressed up in her work clothes, and she was beautiful. He smiled down at her. "You smell sexy." He was insanely aware that he was half naked next to her. He almost couldn't think. His voice was husky when he said, "I've been working my fingers to the bone." "Let me kiss them better." Ariel turned her head slightly and kissed the tips of his fingers. Her kisses were like matches to fire, so small to start something so huge and wild. Wyatt pulled her to him, cupped her head and kissed her sweet mouth. Ariel melted against him. Wyatt lifted her off her feet, kissing her as he carried her into his room, slamming his door shut with one foot. He fell on his bed, pulling Ariel on top of him. He wanted to make love with her, but he didn't want to pressure her, and he didn't want to crush her under him, making her feel trapped. Ariel wrapped her arms around his neck and wriggled against him, and that nearly made him crazy. "You're so handsome," Ariel whispered, kissing his neck, his shoulders, his chest. "You're the most wonderful man I've ever met." "Marry me," Wyatt told her. "Marry me tonight." Ariel laughed. "We can't marry tonight, silly, but someday, soon." He didn't want to frighten her with the heat of his desire for her. He wanted to do this right. "Well then, let's pick up some fish and chips and go watch the boats." "A perfect idea," Ariel said. It was happening. Sheila was ready. This was her third date with Frank, and this was the night she would go to bed with him. They hadn't talked about it, but Sheila knew it was going to happen, and she couldn't wait. Frank told her he was taking her to Chanticleer, the famously expensive and classy restaurant out at the east end of the island. Sheila worried about what to wear. Her butterfly dress was too silly. Ariel loaned her a simple black dress and swept Sheila's red hair up into an elegant chignon. Entering the restaurant was an experience in itself. The white gate and the roof of the building were covered with hundreds, if not thousands, of small pink roses, and on the front lawn stood a beautiful merry-go-round horse. Inside, the floors were polished wood, the tables covered with snowy white linen, and the atmosphere was hushed, as if they were in a place of worship. The maitre d' approached. "It's good to see you again, Mr. Johnson." "Thank you, Mark," Frank said. They were seated at a table overlooking the garden. Immediately, Frank ordered a bottle of champagne, which soon arrived in a standing ice-filled bucket. The waiter expertly removed the cork and poured the pale gold liquid into their glasses, then discreetly disappeared. Sheila took a sip. "This is heavenly." "I'm glad you like it," Frank said, keeping his eyes steadily on her face. "How has your work been going this summer?" Sheila asked. She had sat in her bed last night with a pad of paper and a pen, working out what she could ask Frank to help her get to know him. Frank leaned back in his chair. "It might not look like work to you, more of a drink or dinner with friends. I've brought several accounts here for lunch or dinner."
"That's why the maitre d' knows you?"
Sheila said. "Yes, I tip well. Over our food and drinks, I ask about his wife, his children, a vacation in the planning stage, if their dog recovered from being hit by a car."
"They must be pleased that you remember them so well, as if you were a friend."
Frank poured them each another glass of champagne. "It's not an act. I like my clients. I reciprocate. I tell them that I miss my daughter, now that my divorce has gone through, that my wife is marrying her lover and they want to move to New Mexico. But our custody arrangement says she cannot take Amy out of the state. I tell them I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Newark and will stay there until I decide where to live permanently. The airport is nearby. Some clients offer sympathy. Some have also been divorced and share their complaints."
"How old is your daughter?"
Sheila asked. The waiter approached to take their order, putting their conversation on pause. Sheila ordered the tuna tartare and the halibut. Frank ordered oysters and a steak. When the waiter stepped away, Frank continued as if they hadn't been interrupted. "Amy is 6. I do love her, but the truth is that with my traveling, I haven't been home often to be with her. That I regret." Sheila could hear the melancholy in his voice, see the sorrow in his eyes.
"Tell me about Amy,"
she said. Frank shook his head and smiled ruefully. "Not tonight, Sheila." Reaching across the table, he took her hand and said, "When you are as old as I am, you will learn to live in the moment. In this moment, I am here with a beautiful young woman, and we are about to be served ambrosia." Sheila blushed as he held her hand. She didn't know what to say. She was relieved when the waiter set their appetizers before them. Dinner rolls and butter were on the table, and Sheila broke a roll, buttered it, and took small bites to help her swallow her very pink raw tuna. They chatted about the island weather, a play the theater workshop was performing, and Mrs. Reardon's decorating scheme. Sheila spoke about her nice Catholic family, her parents' old-fashioned ways, and the rather daring friends staying at the Sand Palace with her. Their entrees arrived. As they ate, they discussed their food and the extravagant barbecues Sheila's father had in their backyard in the summer, and Frank spoke of unusual treats he'd tasted on his travels: rattlesnake, frog legs, haggis. When the waiter asked if they'd like dessert, they looked at the menus and then at each other.
"The chocolate mousse looks good,"
Sheila said. Frank said, "Just coffee for me, thanks." He gazed at Sheila, and suddenly it was as if the atmosphere had changed, and just his eyes on her made Sheila's face warm. The noises of the room disappeared. She was alone in the universe with Frank. "How fortunate you are," Frank said.
"Oh?"
Sheila asked, slightly worried. "You can eat dessert and not worry about gaining weight. I'm older and desserts are forbidden if I want to keep my lovely figure." Frank laughed and patted his firm belly.
"You look perfect,"
Sheila blurted.
"I mean, you do have a lovely figure. I guess men don't actually have lovely figures, but you are muscular and broad-shouldered and handsome."
"I'm flattered that you think so." Frank paused, and then he said in a low, serious voice, "Beautiful, Sheila, I want nothing more in the world than to put my muscular figure next to yours." Sheila sat back in her chair, refolding her napkin. His words had set her alight. Flames seemed to flicker in her belly, and she knew they would only be extinguished if she could press herself against this eloquent man. She told herself to be brave, to live in the moment. She sat straight and met his gaze.
"I would like that too."
"No?" he asked.
"No,"
she answered. Frank pushed back his chair and stood up. He took his wallet from the breast pocket of his suit, removed a few $100 bills, and put them on the table. "I know where to go." Frank said, and he reached for Sheila's hand. Sheila thought that he would take her to his car. Instead, he led her to a small cottage on a side street of the small village. They walked up a brick sidewalk bordered with flowers. The house was dark. Frank slid a key out of his pocket and opened the front door. "It's all right," he told Sheila. "The owners are away." He kept his hand on hers as they went down a hall and into a bedroom. The curtains were pulled and no lights were on, but Sheila could make out the shapes of a bed, a dresser, a bedside table. Frank turned Sheila to face him. She was trembling. "Don't worry," he said in a low voice. "I've had a vasectomy. You can't get pregnant."
"I'm on the pill,"
she told him. She wanted to say, "Stop talking." Finally, he put his arms around her and pressed himself against her. She was almost paralyzed with fear and anticipation. She put her hands on his back. Frank kissed the side of her neck and down the tanned, bare skin of her shoulders. Then he kissed her mouth. The kiss tasted like champagne. Sheila nearly fell to the floor with intoxication. He kissed her for a long time, slowly, determinedly, the kiss becoming more forceful with each moment. "How do you get this dress off?" he asked. Sheila smiled. She slipped one strap off her shoulder, then the other, and the slide of the silk against her skin seemed unbearably erotic. She shimmied the dress down to the floor and stepped out of it. She wore only lace panties, her tightest strapless bra. Frank exhaled. "My God," he said. He kissed her breasts, her belly, the small bump of pubic bone. Sheila shook so hard she said, "I can't stand up." He carried her to the large bed, lay her down and undressed, while keeping his eyes on her. While he was naked, he was clearly ready, but he continued kissing her, touching her, telling her she was beautiful here and here and here. When he entered her, she cried out. They stayed in the small house the entire night. At one point, Frank got them each a glass of ice water. They slept into the small, deep hours, waking to make love when they were barely conscious. His need for her astonished her. She'd never felt so beautiful, so alluring, so necessary. When morning came, blaring its light through the closed curtains, they left the house, walked to Frank's car, and drove back to town. At the Sand Palace, Frank asked, "Will I see you again?" Sheila, drunk on power, laughed.
"You bet. You'll see me when I'm in my tidy uniform working at the Rose Hotel."
"You mean more to me than you can imagine," Frank told her. He looked sad and tired and angry. Sheila said, "I'm glad." She hurriedly shut the car door and went toward the Sand Palace and quietly slipped down the hall to her room. Nick cut himself shaving and cursed. He was anxious about the dinner at Francine's tonight. Francine and her father were so elegant and sophisticated. Nick didn't want to show up with a shaving cut on his chin. Plus, would one of his Sand Palace friends embarrass him? It was only his love life and his professional life at stake. After Francine had extended the dinner invitation, Nick had said to them all, "Look, you don't have to go if you don't want to."
"Don't be silly," Ariel had said. "We're all dying to go. We can see how your classy inamorata lives."
"All right," Nick had conceded. "Just don't what?" Wyatt had interrupted. "Don't fart at the table? Don't talk with our mouths full?" Ariel had hit Wyatt on the shoulder.
"Stop it. Be nice."
As the four walked along Upper Main Street, Nick admitted to himself that his friends at least looked nice. Wyatt had scrubbed the boat oil off his fingernails and put on a summer-weight blazer Nick didn't even know Wyatt possessed. Ariel always looked perfect. Tonight she wore a Lily Pulitzer dress and small gold ear studs. Even Sheila, who often wore low-cut tops, and why shouldn't she? Her figure was a gift to mankind. Even Sheila had worn a sleeveless dress with what Ariel called a boat-neck collar, so that much of Sheila's gorgeous pulchritude was not on display. They all looked fine, Nick decided.
"This is it,"
Ariel said.
20 Main Street.
"Wow," Sheila whispered. "Good Lord, Nick, you've picked well," Wyatt said. The house was an antique 2-story brick colonial with stunning white trim, and on the roof 2 brick chimneys and a white widow's walk. It was impressively large, and it was situated at a rise in the land, so it looked formidable.
"Gird your loins, boys,"
Ariel said.
"We're going in."
Francine opened the tall front door with a welcoming smile. She wore a simple navy blue silk dress, no jewelry and no shoes.
"Mes amis,"
she cried.
"Come in, come in."
She led them into the front room, asked them how their day had gone, prepared Pernod cocktails in antique etched glasses so fragile Nick was afraid to touch his.
"Is that a Renoir?"
Ariel asked, gazing at a painting of a sweet, plump young girl holding roses. Francine said lazily, "Yes, my mother acquired it years ago."
"Your house is lovely,"
Ariel said, sinking into a burgundy and cream-striped silk sofa. "Merci, but it is too much. I know too much. My mother loved excess."
"It's stunning,"
Sheila said, blinking several times as she took it all in. The walls were papered silk, with male peacocks' tails at the full moment of their display, presenting a confusing glory of different colors in fan shapes, with large indigo eyes in the middle. The room was crammed with furniture, some delicate French antiques, some new chairs and sofas, so fully stuffed it was difficult to sit upright in them. The desk and tables were covered with silver objects that splintered the light, throwing it back in their eyes.
"Is your mother in France?"
Ariel asked. "No, I'm sorry to say she died a few years ago. Lung cancer. Too many Sobranis." Noticing Sheila's confusion, Francine added, "Cigarettes made from a secret Russian formula for the elite, the heads of state, the monarchies, the kings. The oldest cigarette brand in the world. The cocktail cigarettes were delightful. Different colors, pink, green, violet. I always longed to smoke them, but when my mother died of lung cancer, I decided not to smoke." Francine shrugged playfully. "I changed my mind."
"I'm sorry about your mother,"
Sheila said. "Thank you. She was joyful, flamboyant. She had many passions. Do you know her worst obsession?"
"Tell us,"
Ariel said.
"Opera,"
Francine laughed. "Screeching and bellowing throughout the house. The more dramatic, the better. I mean, she played recordings. She couldn't sing, and she knew it, thank the Lord."
"My mother loves ventriloquists and their dummies,"
Sheila said.
"They frighten me."
Nick cringed. "I'm sure."
"Ooh la la!"
Francine cried. "I also dislike those dummies. They seem malevolent."
"I'm afraid of clowns,"
Ariel admitted.
"And mimes."
"Mimes are the worst," Francine agreed. "People blame the French for mimes, but it is an ancient form of acting. Greek or Roman, I think." A woman appeared at the door. She wore simple black trousers, a black shirt, and white apron. Her auburn hair was twisted up at the back of her head.
"Dinner is ready, Francine," she said.
"Oh, Natalie, thank you. Everyone, I want you to meet Natalie, my friend and companion." Introductions were made all around. Nick didn't know whether to rise like a gentleman or offer to shake her hand, but Natalie didn't actually enter the room, so he stayed put. They followed Francine into the dining room, where the walls were papered with silver. The tablecloth and napkins were of antique, intricate lace, and the chandelier blazed above the table. The meal was simple: escargot in a wine and butter broth, rack of lamb, asparagus, and a salad to finish. Fresh strawberries in cream in a crystal bowl for dessert. Conversation was light. Ariel spoke about her trip to Paris, which led Francine to ask exactly where Ariel went and what she saw. They were served with 2 different wines, one white, one red, and by the salad course, Sheila's face became very pink.
I haven't been to Paris, but I've been to Quebec, Sheila announced. Our French class went on a trip.
Did you stay in the Chateau Frontenac? Francine asked.
Sure we did.
Sheila touched her napkin to her mouth, instantly aware that she'd been rude. In a more pleasant tone, she continued.
I'm afraid that was too expensive for us, but we were able to use our paltry French now and then. When a Quebecois understood us, we were thrilled.
You are admirable, Francine said. Americans are lazy about other languages. They think everyone should speak English. Some of us have trouble doing even that, Nick joked. Natalie brought them small cups of strong espresso. Sheila went into a coughing fit. The men threw the thick black liquid back as if chugging liquor. Ariel sipped hers, her eyes watering. We should go for a walk, Francine said, rising. It was almost dark when they left the Bruel house. Francine linked her arm with Nick's. Wyatt took Ariel's hand, and Sheila trailed behind, pretending to inspect roses or a small sculpture.
Sheila, join us,
Ariel called.
No thanks, Sheila answered. I'm thinking of Hank.
She was thinking of Frank. They strolled through the town down to the harbor to look at the yachts. The lights inside made the cabins cast radiant silver on the water, which shimmered when the wind stirred. It seemed like a moment out of time. They had work tomorrow, which meant sleep tonight, so they walked Francine back home and returned to the Sand Palace. The evening was cool and fresh, the air fragrant with flowers and salt. Without planning it, they dropped to the ground on the unkempt lawn and lay back, staring up at the stars. Ariel said,
Thank you for taking us tonight, Nick. Francine is lovely.
You'll have a hard time keeping that one happy, Wyatt said.
Why would you say that?
Ariel demanded. Look at the way she lives, Wyatt responded. All that fancy, unnecessary stuff. I was afraid to move, afraid I'd break something. She's not like that, Nick argued.
I agree with Wyatt,
Sheila said. Ariel raised her head to stare at Sheila, surprised.
Why? I'm not such a redneck I'd insult her to her face,
Sheila shot back.
But come on, no wonder there was a French Revolution. I'm surprised Francine didn't serve us cake.
Wyatt laughed. Clever, Sheila. Yes, it was all very Marie Antoinette. Nick argued. It isn't French to be wealthy.
No, Sheila said, but it is certainly Francine to display her wealth.
I agree, Wyatt said. Peacock feathers on the wall? And frigging escargot? How ostentatious is that to serve us snails as a delicacy?
You two are not being very nice,
Ariel scolded.
She is who she is, and she took us as we are, and we were serving her a hump night dinner. She didn't drop Nick because all of us are so middle class.
Speak for yourself, Nick said, trying to joke, trying to ease the conversation, which had gotten strangely out of control.
We're not joking,
Sheila said, her voice heated.
How much clearer can it get than here on Nantucket? The world is divided into 2 separate kinds of people, the rich and the poor, or as you say, Nick, the middle class. I'm quite happy to stay in the middle class.
Me too, Wyatt said. You're making something out of nothing, Nick said. Ariel didn't speak. They lay quietly for a while, their own thoughts tumbling inside them. Ariel, your silence speaks volumes, Wyatt said after a while. Don't tell me you side with Francine. Ariel sat up, leaning back on her hands. I don't side with anyone, she said quietly. I had a spectacular evening and I enjoyed every moment. The food, the wine, the beauty of the house. I don't hate anyone simply because they're wealthy, and I don't envy them either. But I can tell you that living here on this island, working at the real estate agency, I'm seeing how pleasant money can make life, and I do not want to be poor. She stood up. Good night, everyone. We have work tomorrow. She walked alone into the Sand Palace. 16. This summer. Thursday evening, Jade Marie looked at her watch. It was almost 5:30, about the time the Sand Palace Four gathered at the bistro for a drink. Jade Marie was nervous. This was her father's special week, and she wanted everything to go well. She felt protective of Sheila because Sheila had once been part of the Sand Palace group. Plus, she liked Penny a lot and hoped Sheila was okay with Penny going off with Liam. Jade Marie trusted Liam to be good with Penny. She wasn't sure she could trust the seas. Her father, Sheila, and Wyatt walked through the sliding glass doors into the foyer. Jade Marie hurried over to greet them. Hi guys, good day? Jade Marie kissed her father on the cheek. Out at the new police and fire station, Nick said. Jade Marie snorted. What? Why don't you take them to the dump, too? Actually, we went there first, Wyatt told her. I asked Nick to show me the changes in the infrastructure of the island. When we were here in '95, the police station was in town and the fire station was by Stop and Shop. It's great how it's all been modernized. Nick led them to the bistro. Let's have a drink and call the wives. Speaking to Jade Marie, he said, I'm taking everyone out to Millie's and then to watch the sunset on the beach. Nice, Jade Marie said. Come with us, Nick said. I might do that. They ordered their drinks and sat at the long table by the window overlooking the pool. Sheila kept tapping her phone and looking worried. Has anyone seen Penny? She asked. I've been trying to reach her, but she's not answering her phone. Didn't you find her note? Jade Marie asked. What note? Sheila demanded. She told me she'd leave you a note or call you. Jade Marie took a deep breath. Penny told me she's going sailing with Liam overnight. What? Sheila's on a sailboat overnight? I don't understand. Oh no, Jade Marie thought. She hurried to reassure Sheila. Mrs. O'Connell, Penny will be fine. Liam's an experienced sailor and no storms are forecast. It's an adventure. She should have asked me. Sheila was red in the face. Francine and Ariel stepped out of the elevator and strolled across the foyer to their table. Francine wore clam diggers and a gray silk t-shirt. Ariel wore white shorts and a blue boyfriend shirt. Hi, everyone. I hope I haven't kept you waiting. Francine leaned over to kiss Jade Marie. We oldies are going out to Millie's for dinner and to watch the sunset. Want to join us? Nick rose. Babe, I'll get you a G&T. Ariel, what can I get you? Ariel slid into a chair next to Wyatt. I'd love a Prosecco. And so it shall be, Nick replied, bowing at the waist before walking back to the bar. Francine slid into a chair next to Jade Marie. She scanned the faces around the table. What's wrong? My daughter is gone, Sheila cried. Jade Marie let her go off with that Liam person overnight. Lucky Penny, Francine said. I wouldn't mind spending the night with Liam. Have you seen him? Mom, Jade Marie said, smiling, amused and only slightly embarrassed. Sheila's mouth tightened. You think it's funny? Penny is my only daughter. She's less sophisticated than the rest of you. If something happens to her, I'm holding you personally responsible, Jade Marie. I wasn't laughing at you or Penny, Jade Marie said. Wyatt shook his head.
Sheila, you're catastrophizing. I'm what?
You're predicting dire events without sufficient information. Ariel nodded. He's right, Sheila. Sheila sniffed.
I'll be glad to be wrong when my daughter returns.
Hold on. Nick set Ariel's Prosecco before her. Sheila, look, I know Liam. He's a champion sailor. The sliding glass doors opened and Jason stepped into the foyer. He caught sight of the others sitting around the long table in the bistro and waved. He started walking toward them, then paused. Please come join us, Jade Marie said. We've got a crisis. Really? Jason walked toward the group. Well, I've got... Sheila interrupted him.
My daughter has gone off with Liam on a sailboat overnight.
Jason turned on a dime and went to the bar. The oldies, as Jade Marie now thought of them, kept trying to reassure Sheila. Had Sheila always been such a drama queen? Jason returned with a beer in his hand. Sit here, Jade Marie said, patting an empty chair next to her. Jason sat. Lowering his voice, he said to Jade Marie, Penny went sailing with Liam overnight? Wow, I wouldn't have believed she had the guts. It is a surprise. Sheila seems to think it's a catastrophe. Wait till I break my news, Jason told her. What news? Jade Marie leaned toward Jason as if they were conspirators. She was close enough to see the sunburn over his nose and cheeks, close enough to sense the fresh salt air on his shirt, warmed by his chest, close enough to touch that chest, close enough to kiss. Softly, Jason said, I have a job at Cabot's Marine for the summer. You're kidding. Not kidding. He moved his hand from the back of the chair to her shoulder, gently urging her closer to him. Because of you, Jade Marie. You gave me the courage to do it. When we talked today, I knew what I wanted to do. Remain on the island and be free, Jade Marie whispered. Yes, and spend as much time with you as I can. You're changing my world, Jade Marie. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm so proud of you, she said softly. Oh, I really want to kiss you now. Darling, Ariel called. Could you share your secret with us, or is it only for Jade Marie? Her voice was sweet and slightly shaky. I've got a job at Cabot's Marine, Jason told his mother. For the summer and maybe longer. Here on the island? Ariel asked, her hand at her throat. You can't work here, Wyatt said angrily. You've already got a job, in case you forgot, at the university. I don't like working there, Jason said, his voice mild. I've mentioned this before, about 50 times. Get over it, Wyatt argued. No one likes their first job. You have to start in the basement, like I said, and slowly make your way up. Dad, first of all, you were never in the basement. Plus, you like geology. I don't. I never have. Don Cabot is a good guy, Nick interjected. Wyatt turned on him. No one asked your opinion. Francine stood up. She was very slight, but she radiated power. Let's allow Jason and his family to discuss this matter. Sheila and Nick and I, and Jade Marie, if you'd like, are going out to Matticat. We'll go in Nick's Jeep. The hotel has another car you can use when you follow later. Thanks, Mom, but I'm doing something with Jason. Jade Marie turned to Jason. I'll wait for you on the beach outside. Jason reached up and gripped her hand. Still holding it, he rose. Jade Marie and I are going to the jetties to eat. We'll walk. Jade Marie gave her mother a little wave as she was towed to the front door by Jason. When the sliding glass doors opened, she and Jason stepped through into the hot summer evening, and Jade Marie was exhilarated, as if they'd been released from prison. For a few moments they walked in silence. Jason gripped Jade Marie's hand hard. Jason? She said. Your hand? Oh, sorry, I guess I wasn't thinking. Oh, you were thinking. But share it with me. Don't keep it inside, let's talk about it. I mean, it's extraordinary what you've done. Leaving a full-time job at home for a short-term job on an island? I mean, wow. Jason raised his eyes to meet hers. Okay, he said. I'm thinking I made an impulsive decision. But not necessarily the wrong one, Jade Marie said. Right, Jason said. You're right, Jade Marie. It's odd. I felt at home at Cabot's Marine. I felt challenged. I mean, an outboard motor is complicated. It's not like studying anomalous precious metal occurrences, but it's real. Somehow it's more real. It's here, now. Don showed me the transom clamp bracket and swivel bracket, the screw threads, and the lubricant to grease them. Some of the stuff I already know, the spark plugs, the fuel filter. I want to take apart an outboard motor and put it back together again. I would like to do that. I never knew before that I'd like to do that. I like to move. If you worked on the island for the summer, you could learn stuff that you could use anywhere, Jade Marie said quietly. True. But you know what? I want to live through a winter here. I want to see more of the island. I've only been here 4.5 days, and it's like I stepped into a whole new world. I know what you mean, Jade Marie said. I'm glad Penny went with Liam. It will change her life. The day we biked around the island was a revelation for me. I sound like I've joined a cult, I know, but honest to God, it's a kind of magic. I mean, I don't want to worship it or write songs about it or anything. I just want to be there. Be here, on this island. It will be difficult to find a place to live in the summer, Jade Marie said. No, that's the thing. Don has a small apartment above the shop. It's kind of a pit, but it's right on the harbor. I can see everything. That's amazing. I'm surprised Don hasn't rented it out. You should see it. The sink has rust stains and the mattress you don't even want to know about. The windows have a great view, but they're really old, and get this, to keep a window raised, you have to prop it up with a stick. That's an old Nantucket custom, Jade Marie said. Really? How do you know that? How long have you lived here? I was here for a few weeks last summer when Dad was thinking of buying the place, and we spent Christmas here. I've been here this year since April. I like it a lot. I've toured the Whaling Museum and gone to some talks and made a few friends. Will you be here this winter? Jason asked. Jade Marie smiled. I will, Jason asked. So, how do your parents feel about you staying here? They're fine with it. They'd be fine if I said I was going to become a kangaroo trainer in Australia. Not that they don't love me, they do. But we have moved so many times in my life because of Dad's work. They get that I want to stay in one place. Mom's going back to France for a few months for her fundraisers. Dad will be here for the summer. A group in Switzerland wants him to invest in a ski hotel, so he'll go out there at some point and rendezvous with Mom in Switzerland for Christmas. I'm invited, but I'd rather stay here and see what a Nantucket winter is like. Jason said, Tell me about your dad. He's an interesting person. That's one way of describing him, Jade Marie said. She sighed. You've seen him, and what you see is what you get. He's energetic, brilliant, charming, impulsive, and fun. He's a good guy. He's always excited about the next project, and he loves solving problems. Bad side, he's impatient. With my mom and me, he's unreliable. They reached the parking lot for Jetty's Beach and the Moby Mat to the water, and the Sandbar outdoor restaurant and bar. Jason bought them each a beer, and they scuffed through the sand down to the water. In the daytime, the beach was crowded with families because the water was shallow for a long way out. Now families had left for dinner. It was easy to find an isolated spot to sit. They watched in silence as a yacht with a helicopter and jet skis floated into the inner harbor. One of the fast ferries drifted past, heading for the mainland. White sails hovered in the far distance like mirages. I wonder how Penny is, Jade Marie mused. I bet she's in heaven on the open water. It's amazing out there. Liam isn't bad either, Jade Marie said, trying to get a rise out of Jason. He's a sexy guy, she added. But he's a good guy, right? Jason asked. Jade Marie laughed. Don't worry about Penny. She's more likely to attack him than the other way round. After that, they were quiet. It was that time of evening when it seemed the earth and ocean paused to take a deep breath. The light changed and dimmed. The sky drifted from blue into lavender. The temperature dropped as a light breeze swayed over the water and onto the land. This far away from the restaurant, no noises interrupted the delicate evening sounds. The waves lapped musically against the shore. A gull cried. The moon rose, sending a shimmering lilac-hued veil around the island. Nice, Jason said. Nice, Jade Marie agreed. It's immense, Jason said. Jade Marie remained quiet, giving him space to think, to feel. My dad is going to be so angry and so hurt, but the world is larger than his science. This, Jason held his hands wide. This can't be captured. No, Jade Marie said. Only enjoyed. Right, Jason smiled at Jade Marie. Right, Jade Marie said softly. You must feel like an astronaut stepping out of the spaceship onto the moon. Jason nodded. After a moment, he said somberly, I feel like someone stepping out of a boarding school into my real home. That's a lot, Jade Marie murmured. Do you know what I like about you? She cocked her head. What? You know how to be quiet. Jade Marie peered up at him from under her lashes. I can be noisy too. She couldn't believe she was behaving like this, but she could tell by the way his pupils dilated and his breath hitched that he wanted her too. Jason stared at her, as if trying to figure out the answer to a puzzle. He bent toward her, pulling her to him, kissing her hard and then harder, as if some wall inside him had broken and his feelings were rushing out. A child cried out in a high little voice,
Mommy, what are those people doing?
Immediately, Jason and Jade Marie pulled apart. I guess all the families haven't gone home, Jason said. Also, Jade Marie remarked, readjusting her clothes, kissing on a beach is difficult. Then let's go back to the hotel, Jason said. He stood up and held out his hand. She took it and rose and walked by his side as they walked toward the lighthouse. Liam had caught a bluefish, cleaned it, and grilled it while Penny stood in the tiny galley kitchen, tossing a salad of the arugula and romaine Liam had in his toy-size refrigerator. They had sat on the deck chairs next to the hibachi, eating as the sun set, licking their fingers, not needing to talk. They were in open water, no land in sight, when Liam dropped the anchor. The sky was cloudless, and Penny had never seen so many stars. She lay on the bow of the boat in her sweatshirt and shorts and life vest, a glass of Prosecco in her hands, propped on her stomach, and marveled at the sky. Liam lay next to her. He was in shorts and a sweatshirt and held a glass of whiskey in his hands. Now Liam stood up. He leaned over Penny, his legs wide apart for balance. He held out his hand. He said, "Let's go to bed." Penny said, "I'm not sleepy." Liam said, "We're not going to sleep." Penny's heart tripped. She wanted this. She had known this would be part of their trip, and she was eager and nervous. She took his hand and he pulled her up. She followed him to the stern and down the steps into the cabin. Beneath the bow, where they'd just been lying, a wide bed stretched out, with pillows and sheets and small windows on each side. She lifted her arms to take off her sweatshirt. She had nothing on underneath because she'd hung her bikini top up to dry. "My God," Liam said, "you're beautiful." The attraction between them was so intense, Penny was trembling. Liam stripped down until he wore only a shark's tooth on a rope around his neck. His chest was lightly furred with black hair, and along his arms the hair was bleached white. A scar ran from his neck to his navel. Penny could imagine him wearing a pirate's hat and boots, a parrot on his shoulder. Liam embraced Penny and they lowered themselves onto the bed, and making love was so sweet, Penny wept. Afterward, they slept, curled together. They both woke in the night, shifting positions. The portholes were still dark. They made love again and slept again. It was early morning when Penny woke with the sun streaking across the bed. She yawned lazily and rose. She could hear Liam walking on the deck. She pulled on her bikini and joined him. He'd made coffee and offered pastries he'd bought the day before at the Downy Flake. For a long time they had breakfast and gazed at the sea and sky, both calm, both blue with streaks of rose and violet. "It seems like the world is brand new," Penny said. "Like it was created only today." Liam nodded. "I know." He poured them both another cup of coffee, and together they sat basking in the early sunlight. "Your phone's been buzzing," Liam said. Penny rolled her eyes. "I know, probably my mom."
Are you still alive? Have you been eaten by a whale? Are you stranded on an ice floe?
Liam laughed. "You should let her know you're okay." Penny read aloud as she tapped a few words into her phone with her thumbs. "I'm fine. We're close to Boston. Have fun today." She sent the message and then turned her phone off. "Families. I love my mom, but I don't want to be like her. I want to travel. I want experiences." Liam grinned. "I'd say you're off to a good start." Penny stretched her arms and lifted her face to the sun. "Absolutely." She took another sip of her coffee. "I saw this photo of you and your family in the media room. Your sister is pretty. She looks like your father, and you look like your mother." Liam nodded. "You're perceptive, aren't you?" He leaned back in his chair and gave a long sigh. "What?" Penny asked. "So, I don't tell many people this. It's a private thing, and what's done is done, and it's fine." Penny waited silently. "My father isn't my biological father. I mean, the man I call my father now. When I was a toddler, around 2 years old, my parents and I were on Nantucket for the summer, and we were driving to Sconset, and..." He paused as if gathering strength. "When I was a toddler, my parents had a serious car accident with another car at the turn on Pulpus Road. My mother was all right, and I was tussed up like a turkey in my car seat in the back. But my father was killed." "God, Liam, I'm so sorry." "I was too young to know what was going on. My grandparents came to the island and took care of me while my mother went through the business of dealing with her husband's body and the paperwork and the memorial service." Liam swallowed the rest of his coffee. "They say you don't remember anything before you were 5 years old. It's true. I don't remember the accident. I don't even remember my father. I don't remember my mother's grief, but she has told me about it. When I was 6, my mother married Gus Miller, and she legally changed my last name to Miller." "Do you know your birth father's name?" "Yeah, it was Harrison." Liam laughed harshly. "How many thousands of Harrisons are there in the world? Anyway, Miller is my last name now." "Do you get along with your father?" "We get along as well as any son and father," Liam said. "He's all right. My mother's happy, and it's nice to have a sister." "What about the man who ran into your father's car?" Liam shook his head. "The judge ruled that both drivers were at fault. My father was turning before he should have, and the other driver was going too fast. Both drivers had been drinking.
Do you know what happened to him?
Liam's face grew dark. I do not know, and I don't want to know. My mother is happy, and I wouldn't trade Grace for anyone in the world. Penny said nothing. After a while, Liam said, I would have liked to know my birth father. You know, to meet him, to hear him speak. With a kind of growl, Liam stood up, stomped down the stairs into the galley, rinsed his cup, and came back to the deck. Time to get sailing, if you want to see Boston, he said. 17. That summer. The late July heat and humidity was so intense that the Sand Palace Four decided to get sandwiches and soft drinks and spend the hump night dinner at the beach. They rode their creaking bikes to the jetty's beach and walked down to the water. Behind them at the concession stand, music was blaring and crowds were shoving to get drinks and hot dogs. Sheila said,
Let's go further down the beach. I don't want to listen to all that noise.
Nick said, You sound like a cranky old lady.
I am a cranky old lady,
Sheila shot back.
The Rose Hotel is full, and Mrs. Reardon is constantly in hysterics about sand in the rugs and dead light bulbs.
Dead light bulbs? Wyatt said and laughed. Sounds like a kind of bug.
A lightning bug,
Ariel said, laughing. Yeah, a firefly, Nick agreed.
You're all crazy,
Sheila told them, joining in the laughter.
It's a 60-watt glass bulb of light, and I have to get a ladder and climb up and replace it. It's not fun.
A glowworm, Wyatt whispered. Sheila batted him on the arm.
Doesn't Mrs. Reardon have a handyman?
Ariel asked.
She's got a plumber and an electrician, but she's not going to pay an electrician to change a light bulb. I don't mind, really. It's just one more thing in addition to all the shit work I'm supposed to do.
Someone's in a bad mood, Wyatt said. Ariel wrapped her arm around Sheila.
She deserves to be. I get to prance around in nice clothes all day, but my feet hurt at night, if that's any consolation. And I've got to say, I meet some of the world's snottiest people. This week, when a couple came in to talk with a realtor, the wife looked at me and said, "Hey you, go get me an iced coffee with sugar." I ran down to the hub for coffee, and when I returned, she snatched it out of my hand without saying thanks.
Nick laughed. We get some pompous customers in Fanshawe's, too. Yesterday, a woman came in to buy clothes for her son who's going to boarding school. She kept saying, "Groton, Groton, my son needs this for Groton." What a pain she was, and I was totally polite, practically bowing and scraping. As they were going out the door, she said to her son, "You can tell that man didn't go to Groton."
Ouch,
Sheila said. It's okay, Nick told her. I yelled, "No, I went to Exeter," and her son gave me a thumbs up.
Did you go to Exeter?
Ariel asked. No, and I don't care if that woman ever returns to the store. Someday I'll own a hotel and she'll walk in and I'll tell her all our rooms are taken. I like working at Cabot's, Wyatt said. Don is a good guy and he interacts with the customers. He knows all of them, really. Ariel said,
I have an idea. A good one. Not this week, but sometime in August, before we all go our separate ways, the four of us should go out to dinner. It doesn't have to be Topper's or the Chanticleer, but maybe the boarding house. Something nice. We'll be our own guests.
It wouldn't be cheap, Sheila reminded her. I think it's a good idea, Nick said. We'll eat peanut butter on crackers a couple of nights to balance out the cost. Ariel said,
Sheila, you don't want to go to a nice restaurant because someone else is taking you to them now.
Nick sat up. Whoa, Sheila, you've got an island boyfriend? Wyatt grumbled. I thought you were engaged to what's-his-name, Hank, back home. Sheila shifted nervously on the sand.
He's not a boyfriend, he's just a friend.
What's he doing here? Nick asked. Sheila hesitated.
He's staying at the Rose Hotel. He's in advertising.
You mean he's a traveling salesman? Nick raised his hands in a triumphant gesture.
Go, Sheila.
It's not that way,
Sheila protested. She sat up and started building a sandcastle with her hands, turning her back to the others.
Hey,
Nick said.
I'm not criticizing. I think we should all have a last-minute fling before we return to the big, bad adult world.
Wyatt stood up abruptly and stalked off down the water.
What's with him?
Nick asked.
Why has he got his panties all in a bundle?
I don't know, Nick, Ariel said.
Maybe he takes sex more seriously than you do.
Nick shook his head.
It's too hot to argue.
He walked down the beach away from the group. When both men were far enough away, Sheila murmured,
I slept with Frank.
Ariel made a small gasp of surprise.
Was it okay? Okay, it was beautiful.
Sheila spun away from the sandcastle to face Ariel.
He told me he loves me.
But what about Hank? Ariel asked.
I don't know, it's too early, too fresh. I've got the rest of the summer to figure it out.
Sheila put her hands on Ariel's arms as if pleading.
It's possible we could be together. He's divorced. I could find some kind of work, maybe here on the island, and Frank and I could buy a small cottage.
With a white picket fence and a rose garden? Ariel shook her head.
Sheila, get real. And think of Hank. Maybe invite Hank here to visit. If you see him again...
Sheila sighed, disappointed.
I know you're trying to help, but you don't understand the enormity of our feelings for one another.
Oh, I do understand, Ariel said. And I don't think it's necessarily a good thing. Nick and Wyatt were walking back to them, tossing a grimy tennis ball they'd found in the water. To Ariel's surprise, Wyatt threw the ball at her, and to everyone's surprise, she caught it.
Come on, ladies. Let's have a game. Boys against girls. Like tennis or volleyball, without a net.
Ariel laughed with delight. She took Sheila's hand and pulled her to her feet. Nick drew a line in the sand.
Baseball on the beach. Winner take all,
Nick announced.
What's the prize?
Sheila asked. Ariel tossed the ball over the line and over Nick's head. Wyatt caught it.
No prize, Sheila. Just play.
They threw the ball back and forth, moving farther apart each time. The guys could throw the farthest, so Ariel and Sheila conspired and threw the ball just over the line, making the guys run and dive. They each jumped to catch the ball, often falling on the sand or stumbling in a hole, screaming, laughing, and a family stopped to watch them, applauding each time one of them caught a tricky throw. The tide was coming in, quietly slipping up toward their sand line, and the sky gently faded from bright blue to pale blue to gray. A couple holding hands walked past. The man yelled,
Zen tennis?
Nick gave the man a thumbs up, and Sheila threw the ball and hit Nick in the head and couldn't stop apologizing. Too soon it was too dark to see the ball. They gathered up their gear and walked across the sand to the parking lot, where they all stopped to slip on their sandals. As they walked, Nick began to sing the Irish ballad Molly Malone. He had a strong, true baritone voice, and while he sang, the others were held spellbound. They reached the sand palace, threw their sandy towels over the bench outside, and shook the sand off their sandals.
That was beautiful, Nick, Ariel said. I didn't know you could sing.
There's a lot I can do you don't know about,
Nick said, giving her a look. Wyatt punched Nick's arm.
There's a lot I can do you don't know about.
You guys,
Sheila said, and went into the sand palace to get ready for bed. Sheila considered her talk with Ariel. She knew Ariel was right. She should be more careful with Frank. True, she was on the birth control pill, but Frank was older and more experienced. And of course Sheila had to remember Hank, waiting for her in Ohio. Still, Sheila thought, the damage was done. She'd already cheated on Hank. She'd had sex. Glorious, grown-up, complicated, imaginative sex with Frank. Would it make her transgression even worse if she did it again? Who was a person, really? Everyone was defined by their circumstances. Where they were born, what they looked like, how smart or attractive they were. Maybe life was like the theater. She could be one person in one show, and a completely different kind of person in another. She hadn't thought these sorts of things before. She wondered if this was what it felt like to be on drugs. Saturday night, Ariel went to see a movie with her real estate friends. Wyatt was working late and Nick was off with Francine. Sheila had another date with Frank. As she slipped on the violet silk slip dress Ariel had loaned her, the violet was all wrong for her own coloring, that flaming red hair, but it fit her like a dream. Sheila played with the idea that she'd break off with Frank tonight. It would be the right thing to do. Also, it would keep her from having a broken heart when he left the island. A year ago, at college, a friend had given her a cute little evening bag for her birthday. It was small, just big enough to hold a lipstick and some cash, in case, her friend had laughed, she'd needed to buy some condoms. She wore long, dangling rhinestone earrings she'd found at the thrift shop. She thought she looked glamorous when she put them on, but really, were they too much? Kind of slutty? She hurried out of the Sand Palace before she could change her mind. Frank said he'd pick her up from the bench in front of the building, and there he was, waiting, the top down on his rented convertible. "Hi," she called, unable to keep the good old Midwestern cheer from her voice.
"I'm so glad to see you."
She slid into the passenger seat. She didn't try to kiss him, not in public. "You have no idea how glad I am to see you," Frank said. She studied his face as he focused on pulling away from the curb and heading toward Orange Street, the long road that led all the way out of town. Frank somehow looked older, with dark circles under his eyes and his mouth set in a somber line. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. Frank heaved a sigh. "I need a drink. I need many drinks."
"Have you made dinner reservations?"
Before he could answer, Sheila said,
"Because we could cancel them. We could buy a 6-pack and go to the beach and relax."
Frank laughed, a bitter sound like a dog's bark.
"A 6-pack? You are an innocent."
Sheila blinked, wounded. She stared straight ahead and didn't speak.
"We'll stop at the Muse first,"
Frank said.
"Our reservation isn't until 8.
"That's fine,"
Sheila said, although that kind of wasn't fine. The Muse was a bar with excellent pizza, strong drinks, and an enormous and devoted group of regulars. She'd look overdressed in there, or cheap. She quietly slipped off her dangling earrings and put them in her purse. Frank didn't speak as they rode, and when he parked in the gravel parking lot, he didn't open Sheila's door for her as he usually did. She followed him into the large, dimly lit space. It was early, but the space was still crowded. They sat at the bar. Sheila didn't like sitting at a bar, not simply because she thought she looked like she was trying to pick someone up, but also because her feet didn't touch the floor, but dangled a few inches above them. She ordered a ginger ale, wanting to wait for the taste of wine at the restaurant. Frank ordered a shot of bourbon. When it arrived, he tossed it down and ordered another. Sheila felt uncomfortable, worried. This man was not the Frank she was used to. Not that she'd seen him enough to know what the normal Frank really was.
"Frank, we don't have to go out tonight. Let's just relax,"
she said quietly. Frank turned to her.
"I'm sorry, Sheila. I'm acting like an ass. I apologize. I've just had a bad day and I didn't have a chance to shake it off before picking you up."
She put her hand on his arm.
"Want to tell me what happened?"
Frank leaned over and kissed her cheek.
No, sweetheart, I don't. I want to forget today. I want to be with you, dine with you, make love to you. You're my medicine, my reward.
If a warning bell sounded in her mind, it was drowned out by the rush of pleasure Sheila felt as Frank spoke. She was his medicine, his reward. Before she could speak, Frank said to the bartender,
"Another."
The bartender, a tall man with major muscles, quickly shot a look at Sheila, raised an eyebrow, and clearly indicated he wanted her to weigh in on whether Frank should be served another shot. It would be his third in perhaps 7 minutes. Sheila could only smile sweetly, giving him permission. She'd seen Frank drink cocktails and wine at dinner. He was a large man, he had the capacity. Besides, she didn't want to be the one to counteract his order. The bartender set a third shot glass of golden liquid before Frank. He slammed it back.
"So, Frank,"
Sheila said conversationally, as if this were a normal evening.
"Do you watch baseball? Everyone roots for the Red Sox here, but I've got my hopes up for the Cleveland Indians."
Frank paused before speaking.
"Yeah, that's good."
He stepped off his stool, took Sheila's hand and helped her down.
"Let's go to dinner. We've got reservations at Topper's."
"Wow," Sheila said, unable to hide her enthusiasm. Topper's was the most revered and expensive restaurant on the island. She would have been happy to work there. She'd never dreamed she would dine there. The hotel and restaurant were hidden away far from town on a winding lane off the Pulpus Road. As they walked across the parking lot to Frank's car, Sheila watched his gait, his steadiness. He seemed absolutely normal, as if the 3 shots of bourbon hadn't affected him at all. He helped her into the car, gently shut her door, went around the front and slid into the driver's seat. He drove through the side streets that led to the Milestone Road, and he didn't say a word. It made Sheila nervous. She put her hand on his arm.
"Frank, something's wrong, I can tell. Can you talk about it?"
Sheila meant to calm him, but her words did the opposite. She could see his jaw clench.
"You think you can sweet-talk me and make me all better? Not in my world, babe."
"Look out, Frank!"
They'd arrived at the Rotary, where cars came and went to and from Old South Road and the Milestone Road and Sparks Avenue. Traffic was heavy here at the height of the summer. When Sheila warned him, Frank slammed on his brakes just in time to keep from running the stop sign. Sheila was thrown forward and bounced back.
"Sorry,"
Frank muttered. He waited impatiently while a cement truck barreled through, then hit the gas, making the car lurch. They sped onto Milestone Road, and Sheila braced herself, holding onto the door handle. It was silly, she knew, to be afraid of their speed, because the fastest a car was permitted by law to go on Nantucket was only 45 miles an hour. The Milestone Road was 2-lane, and both lanes had heavy traffic. Forests of pine and tupelo bordered the road, providing an immediate sense of countryside, of escape from a busy commercial town out into a green wilderness. Sheila was worried now, and almost afraid. She didn't know whether Frank had passed the Pulpus Road turnoff on purpose or by accident. Softly, she said,
"Frank, we passed the road to Pulpus."
"Shit!"
Frank yelled. He slammed on the brakes, yanked the steering wheel hard, making the car spin into a U-turn that narrowly missed hitting a contractor's truck in the other lane. Horns up and down the road blared.
"It's okay,"
Sheila said, alarmed.
"We don't have to go so fast."
"The road is right here,"
Frank told her. He spun the steering wheel, veered to the right, and slammed hard into a small station wagon turning from the other direction, without stopping at the stop sign. The noise was apocalyptic. Metal shrieked against metal as the 2 cars collided. The hood of the station wagon flew up. The station wagon driver's door crumpled. Sheila heard screaming. It took her a moment to realize the scream was coming from her. Sheila was propelled forward, the dashboard punching into her abdomen. She had instinctively thrown her hands up, and she thought that one, if not both, wrists were broken. Someone in the station wagon was wailing. Sheila glimpsed a child in the back seat of the other car.
Frank?
She turned toward him, dazed. Frank had been propelled toward the steering wheel. Blood streamed down his face.
"Get out!"
He yelled at Sheila. His face was ugly with anger.
"Run! Get out of here, Sheila! Go!"
"I want to help you,"
Sheila cried.
"Then run! I mean it! Go into the woods! Now, goddammit!"
Frank shoved her hard. Sheila said,
"Okay."
The passenger door was crumpled, so she climbed out over the door, landing on the tarmac of the road, losing her balance and falling into the wild greenery of bushes and Queen Anne's lace on the side. She heard sirens. She heard someone screaming from the station wagon. She heard cars stopping all around them, people yelling. She scrambled to her feet and ran across the grass and weeds on the roadside, right into the protective dimness of the crowded trees. Her ears were ringing. Her wrists were on fire, but she had pushed herself off the ground with them, so she knew they weren't broken. She didn't think anything was broken, although her abdomen hurt. She kept running into the interior of the woods. When she was far enough away from the road to no longer hear the screaming, to no longer spot even a blur of metal or the blue flash of a patrol car, she fell to the ground, sitting with her back against a tree, her skirt becoming sticky with pine needles, her lungs gulping for air. What hurt most were Frank's words, yelling at her to run away. Maybe she had passed out, fainted, her mother would say. When Sheila opened her eyes, the woods around her were darker. The quiet seemed ominous. Her first thought was of something attacking her, a bear, a coyote. Then she remembered the only wild animals on the island were deer and rabbits. Shakily, she rose to her feet, leaning against a tree for support. Fear washed over her. Was Frank okay? Were any of the passengers in the station wagon hurt? The police would give Frank a breathalyzer test, and he would fail it. She had to get back to the Sand Palace. She had to pretend she knew nothing about the accident. Sheila wanted to call her mother, but her mother would only scold her for going anywhere with any man other than Hank. Sheila wanted to call someone, but she had no idea where a payphone was, or even a building with people who had a phone. And if she could get there from here, she shouldn't go into the building, any building, because people would ask her if she was okay. Was she in that terrible accident on the Milestone Road? She knew she had to walk home. First, she had to find a road, and from either of the two roads it would be only a 2-mile walk to the Sand Palace. She slipped off her heels, amazed that she'd been able to run so far in them. Carrying them in her hands, she decided on a direction and stumbled forward, tripping over fallen branches as she went. In only minutes, she saw the blank wall of a building, and a minute later she realized she was approaching Island Liquors from the back. The shop sat off Pulpus Road, just a short way from the Milestone Road. Soon she was on pavement, in the large parking lot of the liquor store. The soles of her feet were hardened from walking on hot sand, so she kept her shoes in her hand. She was almost at the road when the sounds of sirens alerted her. She jumped behind a tree and peered around toward the accident site. 2 ambulances were racing away from the crumpled cars. 2, Sheila thought. A line of cars streamed back from the accident toward Pulpus. 2 police cars were parked on the verge of the road as she watched. A state trooper climbed off his motorcycle. Policemen were stationed at both sides of the wreck, directing traffic. Lights were flashing, people were yelling, and at the back of the stalled line of cars on the Pulpus Road, someone began to honk his horn in irritation at the holdup. Frank would be okay. Sheila told herself. He had been talking to her after the accident. Maybe he'd broken an arm or a leg, or simply had his ribs bruised. She tried to remember who had been in the station wagon, but she wasn't sure she'd even seen the person. She was grateful that Frank had forced her to leave. Their romantic evening would have become a nightmare of sitting in a police station, or even the hospital. Once again, she slid down against a tree and closed her eyes. She was still trembling and her fingertips were cold. She wanted to cry, but her entire body seemed frozen, blank. After a while, she heard the sound of traffic moving near her. Rising, she dared to look and saw the cars moving in both directions past the liquor store. A tow truck was slowly dragging the station wagon away, and Frank's convertible was already gone. She began walking toward the main road, her shoes in her hand, her cute little evening bag over her shoulder as if nothing had happened. The sky was that beautiful shade of lavender that happened just before dark. Sheila wove in and out of the line of trees along the road, not wanting to be noticed. At the intersection where the accident had happened, she paused, waiting until no cars were in sight. Then she hurried across to the other side, noticing shards of glass and metal littering the pavement. She heard herself moan, but remained dry-eyed, focused, thinking of nothing but getting back to the safety of her bedroom. It was a short hike to Orange Street. Here, along the verge, thick grass carpeted the ground. It cushioned Sheila's steps. It felt heavenly. Soon she was crossing the parking lot of Marine Home Center, and then she put her heels on and trotted up Orange to Main and past Main out to South Beach and the Sand Palace. All around her, families ate ice cream cones and window shop. Couples held hands. People stopped to let the dogs on their leashes sniff greetings. It was normal, safe, one-way streets, slow traffic. Some people saw her and looked away, grinning. Sheila knew they were thinking she'd had an argument with her boyfriend or gotten way too drunk. Finally, she saw the odd silhouette of the Sand Palace. She almost ran toward it. No one else was there. She entered her room and collapsed on her bed, and she was so cold she pulled the covers up over her shoulders all the way to her ears, as she had when she was a child, trying to hide. 18. This summer. The oldies, as Francine had called them, went to Matticat, walked the long white satin beach, and watched the sun sink flaming into the sea. They didn't talk, laugh, reminisce. They walked alone, thinking their own thoughts, stopping now and then to toss a pebble into the ocean. The blue water slowly darkened until it was as black as the sky. It was a spectacular sunset, but it didn't lighten Wyatt's or Sheila's moods. If anything, they became more somber, as if the sunset were a curtain closing down on their lives. Back at the lighthouse, no one wanted to go out for an ice cream. First Sheila and then Ariel and Wyatt said goodnight and went off to the privacy of their rooms. When Francine and Nick entered their suite, it was only 10 o'clock, and outside their windows the town was vibrant with voices, music, laughter. Francine slipped off her clothes and slithered into her short silk nightie. For a moment, she remained at the closet door, considering whether to pull on her kimono and settle into bed with a book she was eager to return to, or to stay in her nightgown, often a visual flag that she'd be interested in sex. Nick came out of the bathroom in his boxers, looking preoccupied. Francine pulled on her silk kimono and went over to the small sofa by the window. "Nicky, come. Sit here with me." Her husband settled next to her.
"It's odd, isn't it, being with them all again?"
"I suppose. I never knew them as well as you did. I think they're enjoying themselves."
"I guess. It's just so odd, seeing their children as adults." I worry about them. I mean, Wyatt is awfully hard on Jason. It's as if he expects Jason to be a mini-me, to be an important scientist like he is.
Francine shrugged. Fathers are often that way. Look at you and Jade Marie. She wants to run a hotel, just like her father. That made Nick smile. Jade Marie often made her father smile.
That's true.
Reaching over, he took her hand.
Jade Marie really is the best of the two of us, isn't she? She loves hospitality work, and she's good at it. At the same time, she's got your tranquility and innate ability to remain serene, to assure others.
Also, she can spot a situation and manage it immediately, which is one of your many talents, Francine said. With a sigh, she snuggled into her husband's arms. I worry about how Jade Marie acts with Jason.
What do you mean?
I think she's fallen a bit in love with him.
Why do you say that?
I see the way she looks at him.
Francine, it's only been a few days.
Francine chuckled. I fell in love with you instantly, 25 years ago, when you were catering on a yacht. Nick nuzzled his chin into her hair.
I remember. You were the most impossibly sophisticated woman I'd ever seen.
I can do impossibly sophisticated things, Francine murmured.
I know. I'm a lucky man.
Nick kissed her cheek.
But I feel responsible this week. What if Penny doesn't make it back tomorrow?
Worst case scenario, my darling. Penny loves sailing and calls Sheila to tell her she's spending the summer with Liam. Sheila will have a very public nervous breakdown. We'll let her rant. Then we'll put her on a plane so she can return to her husband and her 3 sons. Penny and Sheila will be fine.
I hope you're right. I know that if Jason really does remain here this summer, working for Cabot's, quitting his university job, Wyatt will never forgive me.
Francine laughed. Darling, why do you care about Wyatt? He's such a dull stick. He's handsome, yes, but I really don't know how Ariel can stay with him. If anything, Wyatt should understand. Wyatt worked at Cabot's 25 years ago, and maybe it's a compliment to Wyatt that his son wants to do the same.
What if Jade Marie wants to marry Jason?
Francine's laugh was like a peal of bells. What if our daughter wants to marry the man she loves? We'll have the reception here at the hotel, and they can honeymoon in Paris.
You're impossibly cheerful tonight.
Francine slid her kimono off, letting it puddle on the sofa. I've been a good wife and hostess for several days. Is there any chance you and I could think about ourselves for the rest of the evening? Nick let his eyes linger on his lovely wife. Running a hotel chain was a constant plague of disasters, complications, late-night phone calls, frustrated guests, and weeping employees. This week he'd instructed his vice president, who was in Jackson Hole, to take all calls and deal with all problems. He'd insisted this was his vacation, when he would reunite with old friends. He didn't need to ruin this beautiful evening with his gorgeous wife. He traveled so much that a night like this was unusual. He knew that the excitement of challenges and disasters was what kept him fulfilled. But everyone needed to rest now and then, to refuel and revive with the pleasures of life, which was what he'd been trying to provide for his old Sand Palace friends. He liked making other people happy. He shouldn't forget, and Francine would not let him forget, that sometimes he needed to indulge in a little pleasure himself. He took Francine's hands and pulled her up against him. He kissed the side of her neck. They were apart so often that even after 25 years they weren't bored by each other. Sex between them was always new and always loving. Francine wrapped her arms around his shoulders and pressed against him, and everyone else in the world and the world itself disappeared. Sheila prepared for bed, brushing her teeth, creaming her face and hands, slipping between the crisp, expensive sheets and heavenly soft quilted duvet, and picking up the e-reader she'd left on the bedside table. She couldn't concentrate. She worried about Penny. Would Liam dock at a harbor tonight? Or would they be out in the dark on the open waters? The Pilgrims had done it, after all. Were there sharks back in the 1600s? There must have been. What would they eat? What if Penny got drunk? Liam was such a large man. He would have a capacity for alcohol far beyond Penny's. What if... She had to stop this. She needed to think of something else. After all, unlike everyone else from the Sand Palace, she had more than one child. She had 4. She picked up her phone and called home.
Sheila?
Hank answered, sounding glad to hear from her.
How's it going out there on your golden island?
The warmth of her husband's voice, his enthusiasm for life, his love for her was like an embrace. Sheila burst into tears. "I miss you," she said. "I miss you all."
We miss you. You're having fun, right? Son and old friends, freedom from housework for a week?
Yes, but Hank, Penny's gone off sailing with a strange man.
Well, what man? Does Nick know him? Is he a good sailor?
His name is Liam. Nick does know him, and he's apparently a prize-winning sailor. He's sailed across the Atlantic.
Is he taking Penny across the Atlantic?
No, he's taking her up along the East Coast, all the way to Boston.
Wow, Sheila, that's terrific. What an adventure for our little girl. She's breaking out, don't you see, Sheila? And it's about time, isn't it?
Oh. Sheila was stunned. She and Hank rarely talked about Penny's temperament, or about the boys. There never was time to sit down and discuss their children, and Hank wasn't the kind to probe into his children's psyche anyway. Hank was all about action.
I never thought of her that way.
Well, now you can. She's an adult after all, Sheila.
Sheila was weeping slightly.
How are the boys?
God almighty, I was going to phone you. Sean hit a grand slam in the 9th inning. The crowd went crazy. He ran the bases like he was 10 feet tall, and his whole team yelled and hollered and carried him on their shoulders, and Brody and Patrick can't stop congratulating him. We went out for pizza. I took the entire team, but you know Ernie Castleton. He coaches the team. He came along too and paid for half of it. I think Sean's floating a few feet over his bed even now. He's so proud of himself.
Oh, Hank, how wonderful.
Sheila broke into a smile, which brought on more tears. Her youngest, smallest, least athletic son, Sean, was 14, still short, and getting that prepubescent chubbiness that boys got before they shot up tall. Sean had a cowlick at the back of his head that would not stay down, and he had freckles. He looked like Norman Rockwell had invented him. His older brothers, 15 and 17, teased their younger brother terribly, but they all teased each other unmercifully.
I wish I'd been there,
Sheila said.
Don't you worry, we've got it all on video. We'll watch it a dozen times when you get home. Now tell me, Sheila, what have you been doing with all your old mates?
It took Sheila a moment to switch from the image of her young, freckle-faced boy. Had she paid him enough attention? Had she paid any of her boys enough attention? She had read to them often when they were young, and made cookies with them. But as they got older, it seemed they were always at some kind of athletic event, which she hated attending because it made her nervous. All that yelling and booing. She hated the competition. Once at the dinner table, when the guys were talking about a game, Sheila had said, I wish they would all just play until they had the same score and then go home. How the guys had laughed.
You still there?
Hank asked.
I am. Sorry, I miss the boys. I miss you.
But you're having a good time, right?
Was she?
Yes, I'm having a great time. Exhausting. Nick has all of us bumping in jeeps over the sand to lighthouses and walking beaches at sunset. Everyone's nice, but I'd rather be home. It's crowded with tourists here.
Hank laughed.
Sheila, you're a tourist there.
I know. I suppose I mean the tourist population must have doubled, if not tripled, since I worked here. And the shops. Sweaters for $250. Necklaces for $30,000. Houses for $10 million. It's extremely upscale now, very posh. Ariel and I took Francine for dinner Wednesday evening, and the restaurant was wonderful. But the bill for 3 people was over $300 without a tip.
Jesus, Hank said. You're going to have to get a job when you get back here just to refill up our bank account.
No, Ariel and I meant to split it, but Francine knew everyone there and insisted on paying. I need to think of something to give her to show appreciation for this week.
It was Nick who invited you, wasn't it?
True, but Francine has been great. Kind and generous. I can't buy her a gift here. I couldn't afford it.
Tell you what, I'll overnight you a couple of Wildcats baseball hats.
Sheila blinked, hesitated, then grinned.
Hank, that would be perfect. I think Francine would carry off a Wildcats cap beautifully.
When they disconnected, Sheila realized she was smiling. Hank's prodigious energy wasn't often focused on her, and she still felt nervous when he was scolding one of their sons. But he was a generally optimistic, happy man, and he still loved her. The boys loved her too. She knew that, but they didn't need her as much. They didn't need her as much. She let the thought tumble in her mind. This could be a good thing, as well as a sad thing. She could have little adventures of her own. After all, she was having one now. Please, God, not like the adventure she'd had the summer she worked here. For years, Sheila had managed to keep Frank Johnson and the terrible car accident out of her thoughts. As a wife and mother, she'd had more than enough to worry about. But here on the island, as hard as she tried, she couldn't help but remember those days of her youth, when she went a little bit wild, and how it all had ended. She'd never told Hank about it. It would hurt him too much, and destroy the trust between them. She'd put that memory at the farthest reach of her mind. But now, with Penny out on a boat with a man she'd just met, the memory of those traumatic summer days came flooding back. She was driving herself mad with worry about Penny and Liam. Maybe when they returned, Sheila would take Penny somewhere private and tell her about that car crash and convince Penny to be more careful. That idea was unsettling. Now she'd never go to sleep. She decided she was just a tad hungry. She threw on her raincoat, which made her look slightly, if oddly, dressed, and left the room. When she got into their hotel room, Ariel said, "I'm going to take a shower." Without waiting for a response, she stepped into the bathroom and shut the door firmly behind her. She leaned against it, catching her breath, slowing her heart. How angry she was at both her men. Jason for taking a job on Nantucket without bothering to consult with his parents. Wyatt, who was in one of his black dog moods because his 24-year-old son wouldn't do exactly what he wanted. She stripped off her clothes, let them lie where they fell, pulled a shower cap on over her hair, and turned on the water. She could adjust the water temperature to her exact pleasure, something that never happened at home because their old plumbing was inefficient at best and disastrous at worst. The soap the hotel provided was citrusy, and she sighed. She'd read somewhere that citrus fragrance was psychologically soothing. She let her head fall back as the water streamed over her and felt the tension in her body float away. Here on the island, it was easier to get some perspective on her husband. When they married and set up house in Missouri, Wyatt had been more affectionate. When she met Wyatt's father, the great Benjamin Smith, she understood why Wyatt allowed himself to follow the same path. Wyatt's father wanted nothing less than to change the world through science, and Wyatt was his replica, his assistant, and his acolyte. As the months passed and she met the other department wives, she came to understand that the scientists, each and every one of them, thought they were doing the most important work in the world. They considered themselves superior to everyone. They were always focused on their work, and nothing else really interested them. Fortunately, Ariel gave birth to Jason, and her world centered around her son's every breath. As the years went along, her friends, the wives as they called themselves, kept her sane and happy. Margot, Bitsy, and Carolyn had become friends years ago, and ever since Jason was 9, Ariel had met with her gal pals on Friday nights for dinner, drinks, and gossip. In the early years, it had been Applebee's or Shakespeare's Pizza, but as they all grew older and were less financially strained, they chose fancy restaurants and filet mignons and custom cocktails. Their conversation early on focused on parenting, soccer games, and the joy of a new household appliance. Now they talked about celebrity crushes, movie stars, and hunky athletes, cruises they wanted to take together, and if wearing a French maid's outfit complete with high heels and a thong would revive their sagging sex life. They told dirty jokes and howled with laughter. They went shopping for sales and came away with 400-count sheets and a Keurig as triumphant as if they'd won first place in a marathon. They often criticized their husbands, but they never mentioned a divorce. A few years ago, Ariel had apprehensively posted on Facebook that she wanted to start a writers' group. At first, few people responded, but she continued to post and even began a blog, and now 5 women and 2 men met once every 2 weeks to talk about writing and read and critique one another's work. Her group praised her short stories and urged her to dig in and write a novel. Ariel had a seditious thought. If Jason stayed on Nantucket, she would have even more time to focus on her writing. Wyatt didn't have friends, Ariel realized. He had colleagues. They attended departmental holiday parties, but as Wyatt chatted and chuckled, Ariel knew it was a front. His department at the university was fiercely competitive with other departments, and within his particular section, he was competitive with the people he worked with. His father was now Professor Emeritus, slowly developing memory loss but never losing his arrogance. When they had Sunday dinners, Benjamin talked the entire time. Ariel could understand why Wyatt's mother had divorced his father and moved far away. And Wyatt now had no one with whom he could share his frustrations and triumphs. No one except Jason. All these years, Wyatt had relied on Jason to be his personal cheerleader, to be intelligent enough to understand how brilliant Wyatt was. But not so smart Jason could compete with Wyatt. If Jason left the university, who would Wyatt have to adore him? Ariel loved Wyatt, and sometimes she admired him, but sometimes she thought he was a selfish, introverted, spoiled baby. Wyatt's father had told them he had begun a scientific dynasty, and Wyatt had dutifully and happily gone along with that thought. But Jason was breaking the chain, and it was Jason's right to do that. Ariel dried off from her shower, took her robe down from the hook on the bathroom door, and tied it at the waist. She brushed her hair. She was going to have a serious, significant talk with Wyatt. Right now. She opened the door and stepped out into the room. Wyatt wasn't there. Wyatt was restless and cranky. Plus, it didn't take a psychic to predict that the moment Ariel stepped out of the bathroom, she'd be ready for one of her discussions that always ended in tears for her and exhaustion for him. Tonight, he didn't want to argue. Jason was a traitor, and Wyatt was not going to let him get away with it. Wyatt hadn't spent weekends helping his son do his homework and learn the complicated mysteries of science only to have him become a manual laborer. He knew the bistro wasn't open this late, but next to it was a small alcove with soda and snack machines. He'd get something, a Snickers, anything, just to leave the room and walk in impersonal air. He called to Ariel that he'd be right back. He wasn't sure she heard him with the water running, but he'd probably return before she got out of the shower. He carefully pulled the door shut and hung the Do Not Disturb sign on the door. As he walked to the elevator, he decided that Nick had really done a fine job with this hotel. The plush carpet, the teak and beveled glass elevator, all first class. The elevator doors slid smoothly open. He headed for the snack alcove.
"Hi,"
Sheila said. Her face was crimson. She was in a raincoat, holding a pint of ice cream. Wyatt smiled.
Stress relief?
Sheila nodded.
"I'm so worried about Penny."
She'll be fine,
Wyatt sighed.
I wish I could say the same about Jason.
"He'll be fine too,"
Sheila assured him.
"He's a wonderful boy. Much more, personable than you were at that age."
I have great plans for him,
Wyatt said.
"Well, it looks like Jason has his own plans."
Moving closer to Wyatt, Sheila said,
"They're fine, Wyatt. Our children have made it through adolescence. I remember when we all used to say we'd be happy if our kids ended up alive and not in jail."
Wyatt forced a chuckle.
I don't think I ever said that.
Sheila gave him a wry look.
"No, I suppose you didn't."
Sheila looked down at her hands, turning her wedding ring, watching the small diamond in her engagement ring sparkle.
"You know, you're not an easy man, Wyatt."
You're saying I should let Jason spend his life doing manual labor?
"You might consider it, if that's what makes him happy."
Then you should consider letting Penny sail off with that nitwit,
Wyatt snapped. Sheila laughed.
"I don't think people say nitwit anymore. Plus, you're right. I agree with you. I should let her go. I mean, really, I can't not let her go. She's gone."
Sheila cocked her head. She reached out and took Wyatt's hand. Wyatt looked down at her hand on his, shocked. Sheila felt him fold his hand around hers, clasping their hands together. They hadn't changed much in 25 years. For a moment they were together again, young, eager, hopeful, clueless.
"We thought we knew everything,"
Sheila said.
We still don't,
Wyatt replied with a grin.
"We know enough to let our children choose their paths,"
Sheila said softly. Wyatt pulled his hand away.
Next you'll be telling me to try yoga.
"It would be good for you,"
Sheila observed.
"Relieve some of your tension."
Wyatt sighed. No one respected his work.
Good night, Sheila,
he said and headed back to his room. 19. That summer. When Sheila opened her eyes, the morning sun was streaming through the small high window. She sat up, feeling a burning pain in her abdomen, and it all came back to her. The night before, Frank's anger, the accident, her bizarre barefooted walk in the forest. In the bathroom, as she showered, she saw the plum-colored bruises on her rib cage and a long scrape on her ankle. She couldn't remember getting that had bled and clotted. The soles of her feet were blistered and torn. The moment of the crash came back to her in blips. She couldn't seem to focus. She started to dress for work at the Rose Hotel, then realized it was Sunday. All the doors to the others' rooms were closed. She was sure everyone was sleeping. Sheila pulled on shorts and a tank top and got back in bed. This time she couldn't slip into the oblivion of sleep. Her mind raced. How was Frank? Why had he told her to run? The only phone number he had was for Sharon Waters' phone on the first floor, and on Sunday no one answered it. The island had no local television news, and the island newspaper came out only once a week on Thursday. Maybe someone had reported it on a radio station, but she had no access to a radio. Throwing back her covers, she paced the floor. A shroud of guilt clung to her. She couldn't think, she couldn't breathe. She had been the one to tell Frank they had taken the wrong road. Had she shouted too loudly and alarmed him? But he had already been in a strange, agitated state. Finally, desperate, she knocked on Ariel's door.
"Come in,"
Ariel called. Sheila found Ariel lying in bed with a book in her hand. "You look awful," Ariel said, sitting up and tossing the book aside.
"I feel awful,"
Sheila said.
"Ariel, I don't know what to do."
"Sit here." Ariel patted the bed. "Tell me." Sheila sat. She needed to talk.
"I went on another date last night with Frank. We were on Milestone Road. He was going to take me to Toppers. He missed a turn and circled back, and when he made the right turn, another car was coming right at us. We crashed. It was terrifying, Ariel, the crash, the noise, and then he yelled at me, told me to go away. He looked angry and mean. So I did run. I hid in the trees. I heard sirens and I saw tow trucks, and I walked home and I haven't heard from him."
"Are you okay?" Ariel asked, gently touching Sheila's arm.
"I'm fine. I have a bruise on my chest from hitting the dashboard, but that doesn't matter. I don't know how Frank is. I can't call the hotel and ask to speak to him because Mrs. Reardon would know it's me. I don't know what to do."
"That must have been so scary." Ariel put her arm around Sheila's shoulders and hugged her.
"I don't know what to do,"
Sheila repeated. Ariel said, "Let me think." She got up and walked to her dresser, put on her watch, nodded to herself, and finally said, "How about this? Let's go to the Rose Hotel. If you see Mrs. Reardon, you can tell her you've lost something. A bracelet, maybe. If she's not there, well, you can peek into Frank's room."
"That's a good idea."
Sheila was wonderfully cheered.
"You are so smart. And you'll go with me, right?"
"Sure. Let me put some lipstick on. And you need to brush your hair and work on your face. Put some blush on so you don't look so deathly pale." The Sunday morning town was quiet. The air smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Sheila and Ariel entered the Rose Hotel by the front door. They stood for a moment in the foyer, listening for noises. Nothing.
"His room is on the second floor,"
Sheila whispered. The women walked up only 2 steps before, with a clatter and a rush, Mrs. Reardon appeared from the kitchen into the foyer.
"Sheila, oh my dear, how good of you to come over. I'm at my wit's end. Did you hear about Mr. Johnson? The police came to my door."
She clutched her hands to her chest. In a trembling whisper, she added,
"The police!"
Sheila put her hands in her pockets to hide their trembling.
"What happened?" "There was an accident. A terrible accident," Mrs. Reardon said. "Mr. Johnson was in his car heading to the Pulpis Road, and he collided with another car that was turning left. You know how impatient our summer drivers can be." Is Mr. Johnson okay?" "He's in the hospital. Some injuries, not life-threatening, but bad. I have his information on file, so I told the police I would call his wife, and I did."
Sheila sagged against Ariel.
"His wife?" "Yes, her name is Bethany. Isn't that just the prettiest name? She told me she'd fly in as soon as she could arrange it."
I thought Mr. Johnson was divorced," Sheila whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Mrs. Reardon looked confused.
"Why would you think that?"
Ariel spoke up. "The people in the other car, are they okay?"
"I'm not sure. Agnes, my best friend, is a nurse at the hospital. I phoned her right after the police left. She couldn't say much, everything is confidential, you know, but she did say a man came into the emergency room with a broken arm and other injuries." No fatalities?
Sheila asked.
Oh dear, I don't know.
Mrs. Reardon wrung her hands together.
Maybe,
she whispered. Ariel said,
I'm Ariel Spencer, Mrs. Reardon. Sheila's told me so much about you and how beautiful your inn is. Sheila thought she'd left a bracelet here, but as we came in the door, she remembered where it is. We're so sorry to bother you. It's no bother at all. Sundays are quiet. Would you both like to have a cup of tea? No, thank you. Perhaps another time.
Ariel linked her arm through Sheila's and walked to the front door. Sheila managed to give the landlady a normal smile.
I'll see you tomorrow, Mrs. Reardon. Yes, have fun on your day off.
The older woman looked at them with a bit of envy in her eyes. Ariel and Sheila hurried down the stairs and onto Center Street.
I want to see him, Sheila said. I'm going to the hospital. It's only a short walk.
Ariel put her hand on Sheila's arm. Wait, don't. That's a ridiculous idea. Tears stung Sheila's eyes.
I don't believe he's still married. He told me he loved me. I want to ask him myself. I want to see that he's okay. Mrs. Reardon gets confused. I'm going even if you don't go with me.
She pulled away from Ariel. Ariel sighed. Okay, Sheila, hang on. I'll go with you. Sheila was already racing past Main Street and down Fair Street toward the hospital. Ariel trotted along behind her, hoping the brief walk would settle Sheila's nerves. The town was small, and so was the hospital. The Nantucket Cottage Hospital was a 2-story structure with a receptionist in the lobby and an elevator to the second floor. Sheila bypassed the receptionist, who was helping a patient, and sped through the hallways and up the stairs. Ariel followed. The stairs opened onto the nurses' station. Sheila approached their desk.
What room is Frank Johnson in? Are you family?
The nurse asked. She was older, with curly gray hair and tortoiseshell glasses that framed careful eyes. Her name was Marlene, and Ariel guessed that this woman had grown up on the island, knew everyone who lived here, and spotted Sheila as a summer person immediately.
No, not exactly, but yes, sort of,
Sheila stammered, impressed by those wary eyes.
His wife is with him now, Marlene said. You and your friend can wait in the waiting room down the hall. I'll tell his wife you're here. What's your name?
Sheila froze. Evie, Ariel said, stepping in front of Sheila.
Her name is Evie Lovelace. Very well.
Marlene made a note on a post-it and stuck it to her desk. Ariel pulled Sheila down the hall and into the waiting room, where several dark green faux leather sofas sat against the walls. Side tables held old issues of People and Sports Illustrated.
Sheila, we have to leave, Ariel said. I want to see his wife, Sheila insisted. Do you want her to see you?
Ariel asked. Sheila looked helplessly at Ariel.
I can't believe he's still married. Here's what I'll do, Ariel said. I'll walk down the hall, and if I see a man in bed and a woman sitting next to him, I'll tell you what she looks like.
Sheila shook her head.
No, you don't have to do that. If that Marlene says his wife is with him, then I guess I believe he's still married. But Ariel, he told me he was divorced.
Ariel took her arm and gently guided Sheila out of the room and down the stairs to the main entrance. They stepped out into the bright summer sun, and the sudden difference between the bright, warm day and the dim hospital space was almost shocking, like stepping from a dream into reality. The two women walked together toward the Sand Palace. Sheila said,
Evie Lovelace?
Ariel laughed.
Okay, you try to come up with a believable name in 2 seconds.
Sheila linked her arm with Ariel's.
Thank you for going with me. Without you, I think I'd still be standing in that hospital corridor, frozen like a statue.
You'll be fine, Ariel said. I think I'd punch him in the face if I ever saw him, not that I know what he looks like.
He's handsome, Sheila said sadly. He's charming and smart and funny, and he treated me with such gentleness. Until last night, anyway. He said he loved me. When he looked at me, I believed he loved me.
He probably did love you, Sheila. People can love two people at the same time. I mean, you still love Hank, don't you?
Oh, God.
Sheila buried her face in her hands.
Hank can never know about this. It would break his heart. I'm such an idiot.
Ariel could tell that Sheila was on the edge of a crying jag. It was a glorious Sunday morning, and people were out enjoying the day. Babies cooed, dogs barked, children begged for ice cream even though it wasn't lunchtime yet. Men in Nantucket red trousers came out of the hub carrying the New York Times, and flocks of people were crowding up the stairs and into St. Mary's Church. Ariel said, "Sheila, hush." Sheila pulled herself together and didn't cry as they walked to the Sand Palace. But once they were in the dim corridor of the building, the tears started to fall again. Helplessly, Sheila turned to Ariel.
Will he ever contact me again? How can he? How can he do anything when his wife is with him? Ariel, he said he loved me. I thought he told me to run from the accident because he didn't want me hassled by the police and all the red tape. I thought he was trying to take care of me. Instead, he didn't want his wife to know he had a girl with him.
Tears streamed down Sheila's face.
Every time I think of this, it seems worse.
You're exhausted, Sheila, and an emotional wreck. You need to get back in bed and rest.
I know. Thank you, Ariel. You've been wonderful.
Listen, you're going to get past this. It was a summer romance and it never could have lasted. Be glad you had it. You were special to him. He probably did love you, but it was a fling. You've got Hank waiting for you at home, and Hank is a genuine good guy, right?
Right.
Sheila began to sob.
I've been so bad. Hank can never know about this.
Ariel gently but insistently moved Sheila into her room, where she fell down on the bed, dissolving into tears. "I'll see you later," Ariel said and left the room, closing the door behind her. She returned to her own room, trying to gather her thoughts. Often on Sunday mornings, while the guys slept late, Ariel and Sheila went out for huge calorie-filled breakfasts. She felt sorry for Sheila, but she felt hungry too. She still was shy about eating alone in a restaurant. She decided to walk down to the Strip and get a takeaway muffin and juice. Love was such a complicated mystery. Sheila loved Frank, who was obviously not making long-term plans with Sheila. Ariel loved Wyatt, and she wanted to make love with him too. But because she was pretty, she knew she was pretty. She'd certainly learned that. Lots of men and boys over the past few years had wanted to be with her. Ariel was holding out for true love. She did love Wyatt. She believed his love was real. She believed he wanted to marry her. Still, this disaster with Sheila and Frank had unsettled her. Ariel sat on a bench, staring out at the water, wondering what to do on this beautiful day. Two women walked past her, heads leaning together as they talked. "Did you hear that a man died in a car accident last night?" one woman said.
"Oh no, that's terrible. Who was he?"
"I don't know, but at least it's not someone we know. Our husbands are safely at the beach, surf casting."
"If they catch anything, they can clean it. Let's go shopping."
Ariel couldn't get her breath. She went cold all over. Had Frank died? Dear God. She tossed her muffin into a barrel and hurried back to the Sand Palace. She should be there when Sheila heard. Nick always experienced a pull of emotions when he went to the magnificent house on Main Street to see Francine. Part of him was a little boy, full of envy and a fear of not being good enough. Most of him was a grown, competitive man, full of determination to someday have the money to buy a house as good as this, or better. Francine opened the door herself. She was in very short shorts and a halter top, barefoot, her blonde hair pulled into a ponytail.
Nicky!
She flung her arms around his neck when he entered the foyer.
You're here!
She tried to kiss him, but he pulled away.
Your father.
He's in New York today, or someplace. Natalie has gone to the mainland to visit friends. It's just you and me.
Well then.
Nick kissed her, pulling her against him. Francine whispered in his ear. Would you like to see my etchings? Nick said.
Oh, yes.
She led him up the stairs, down the hall, and into an unexpectedly modern bedroom. He thought Francine would have a canopy bed and roses on her carpet. Instead, everything was modern, structural. The colors muted gray and a cream so rich he thought he could taste it. They fell onto her unmade bed together. Francine tore off her clothes. Nick quickly undressed. He no longer thought of interior decor, but only of Francine's lithe, slender body pressed against his. They made love slowly, memorizing each other's bodies, stroking, kissing, and lingering here and here and here. And afterward, covered in a sheen of sweat, they smiled at each other. Je t'aime, Francine murmured. Nick's breath caught in his throat.
Did you just say you love me?
Francine ran her fingers over his chest. I did.
I don't say that frivolously,
Nick told her. Nor do I, Francine said and tugged on his chest hair hard. Don't take me for a fool. Nick rolled over on top of her, supporting himself on his elbows, and cupped her face with his hands.
I love you, Francine. I seriously love you.
She smiled. That makes me so happy. They rested, side by side. After a while, Francine said she was hungry, so they pulled on clothes and went down to the kitchen, where Francine served Nick strong coffee in a large cup. She made eggs and bacon and toast and bowls of cut fruit. While she cooked, they chatted about the island, the Sand Palace friends, local gossip. When they had finished eating, Francine said, Nicky, my sweet, tomorrow I'm going to France for a week, maybe two.
You are? Why?
A good friend is getting married. The wedding will be in the country, an entire weekend of celebrations. There will be other parties, before and after.
2 weeks?
Heat rose up Nick's neck and flushed his face.
That's a lot of the summer.
Chérie, Francine said, I assume you and I are going to be together after the summer.
Will we? I'll be working for your father, but you'll be able to go wherever you want.
True. That's what happens, Nick, when you love a rich girl. She touched his arm lightly. I think you and I are going to be together for a long time. Nick shook off her hand and stood up.
Francine, you and I haven't even been together for a short time.
Francine rose and came close to him. These plans were made months ago. I had no idea I would meet you. Lix is a dear childhood friend. I have to go. There will be so many parties, events, lunch with grandparents, and yes, dancing at nightclubs.
I will miss you,
Nick told Francine. He was too proud to admit how he felt, although they had said those serious words, I love you. But she was French. Maybe she said that easily to many men. He was confused and hurt, and too self-respecting to tell her he was hurt by the news, and afraid that she might not come back. I will miss you too, Francine said. But now I must pack.
Of course.
Nick walked away from her, pausing to say in the nicest tone he could achieve,
I hope you have a good trip.
Then he went down the hall and out the door. It was after 11 when Wyatt got up, but he always slept late on Sundays, often later than this. His room still held the coolness of night, and the fan purred along quietly, stirring the air gently. He'd yanked the curtains over the window to keep out the light, and his room seemed, for a while, like his own private world. He sat on the side of his bed, trying to decide what to do with his free day. He had dreamed that Ariel and Sheila were singing. Now he heard them enter the sand palace. Sheila was crying. Ariel was comforting her, speaking in a low, sympathetic voice. He couldn't hear their words, only the sad music of their voices. Wyatt didn't know whether to go out and see what was happening or let them have their privacy. He rose, dressed in board shorts and a t-shirt, and pulled up his sheets in a half-assed effort to tidy his bed. He tried to read a paperback mystery but couldn't concentrate. Finally, he heard the women's voices in the hall. Wyatt stepped into the hallway. Sheila was going back into her room, shutting the door softly. Wyatt said, "Ariel, are you okay?"
"Oh, Wyatt."
Ariel came toward him, and she was crying and shaking.
"Something terrible has happened."
He put his arm around her and guided her into his bedroom. "Sit down, tell me, are you okay?" Ariel nodded.
"I'm fine, but Sheila's broken-hearted. She was dating a man, and last night they were in a car accident on the Milestone Road, and Frank's car, the man's name is Frank, he turned too fast and collided with a station wagon with a family in it. Frank is in the hospital, but the father in the station wagon died."
God, how awful.
"I know. Plus, this morning Sheila discovered that Frank is married. His wife had flown to the island to be with him in the hospital."
Ariel broke down, sobbing wholeheartedly. Wyatt wrapped his arms around her and held her tight. He kissed the top of her head as if he were a parent comforting a child. Actually, he had no idea what to do now. His parents had always been sparse with their emotion, and when he became a teenager, it was a sign of weakness to cry. He was sorry for Sheila. It was tough to find out someone you're dating had lied to you. He wasn't sure how he felt about Ariel's reaction. She wasn't really involved. She was extremely kind and sympathetic, but she'd been crying against him for a long time, and he didn't understand why she was so upset about what had happened to Sheila. He was more concerned with what was happening to him now in this room with this woman in his arms. Her hair smelled like flowers and her skin was so soft. He wanted to make love with her, not to have sex, but to embrace her body and soul with his love and protection, with his promise to never cheat on her. He wanted to embrace her with passion, and so he put his hand on her chin and lifted her face to his and kissed her. Her cheeks were wet with tears, which he found unbearably sexy. She kissed him back, whimpering, and he gently leaned her back on his bed and pulled her on her side so that their bodies touched. "It's okay," he whispered. "It's okay." He put his hand on her breast. She struggled and pushed him away.
"Wyatt, stop."
"Ariel," he tried to hold her back. She shoved him away, twisted so she could stand up, and drew her hand across her mouth, as if wiping away his kisses.
"How can you at a time like this?"
Ariel asked.
"Is sex all you care about? God, you men!"
She stormed out, and he heard her enter her room and lock the door. Click. What did she think? That he'd storm after her and force himself on her? Now he wanted to cry. What had just happened? Girls could be so dramatic. He'd seen them weep and hug one another if their football team lost a game. Wyatt was sorry for Sheila and really sorry that a man had died last night and sorry that that guy Frank had lied to Sheila. but why was Ariel so upset with him? And his day just got worse. He rode his bike to the jetties and swam for a long time. The sheer effort kept him from thinking about Ariel. When he returned to the hotel, he was hungry, so he showered and shaved and walked into town to have breakfast, or, more likely, lunch. The sun was right overhead, and he thought it was the hottest day of the summer. He stopped at a takeaway on the strip, bought 2 cheeseburgers and 2 iced cans of Coke, and returned to his room. He read his mystery while he ate, then went back to bed in the oblivion of sleep. He was tired, he was confused, he was furious at Ariel and at himself. When he woke, it was almost 4 o'clock. He'd wasted his day off. In Colombia, he lived with his parents, and usually on Sunday afternoons he watched a baseball or football game and enjoyed one of his mom's Sunday roasts. He wished he could go somewhere with Ariel, but he heard no sounds from her room or from Sheila's. A knock came at his door. Nick stuck his head in.
Hey man, let's go to the AC and have some brews.
Wyatt thought Nick was irritating with his cool dude persona. The AC instead of the Atlantic Cafe, as if Nick and the restaurant were close buddies. But Wyatt was glad to have company, and he knew a brew would make him feel better. This time when he left the Sand Palace, the wind had come up and the sky was clouding over. As they walked, Nick talked incessantly about Francine.
She's the one, man,
Nick said.
I know it. I just know it. I've met her family. They're snobbish, but we get along. I'm going to work for her father after the summer. But this is not about Mr. Bruel. I have serious feelings for Francine, and she's leaving for Paris tomorrow, and I'll miss her like hell. I hope she misses me.
They sat at the bar right at the front of the restaurant and ordered beers.
Have you seen Ariel or Sheila?
Wyatt asked Nick.
Not today,
Nick said. Wyatt filled him in on Sheila's disastrous evening and how she discovered her boyfriend was married and that a man had died in the accident.
Damn, that's awful,
Nick said.
Poor Sheila. Wow, that's like epic.
On a TV above the bar, a baseball game was in progress.
Who's your team?
Nick asked. Wyatt was shocked that Nick would jump immediately from the accident to a baseball game. But then Wyatt had come to learn that Nick liked skating on the surface of life. Plus, Wyatt had moved fast from the accident to making love with Ariel, and now she was mad at him. What they said was right. Men and women were different. They watched the game and ordered another beer.
I want to play polo someday,
Nick was saying.
I can sit a horse pretty well, and I'm good at hockey, so when I get rich enough to do it, I'm going to try. What about you?
Wyatt laughed. Nick was such a prick. Polo.
I've ridden a lot in Missouri. Friends have horses and I go out with them. Quarter horses, western saddles, sometimes guns in case we come across rattlers.
Wyatt was trying to sound as Midwestern as he could, because Nick was all about being continental, and he knew this would irritate Nick. 4 young men entered the bar. They wore button-down shirts with the tails hanging out over their Madras shorts, loafers without socks, Rolex watches, and $50 haircuts. They were tanned and handsome and laughing, and Wyatt hated them on sight. They were such a type. And what a surprise, they knew Nick.
It's the Nickster!
One of them yelled. They surrounded Nick in a swarm of arrogance, pounding his back, shouting everything they said, ignoring everyone else. Finally, Nick introduced Wyatt to them, and they all found a waitress who pushed 2 tables together for them.
I went to school with these guys,
Nick told Wyatt.
Where do you go to school?
A man asked Wyatt.
University of Missouri,
Wyatt said, knowing what was coming.
Missouri? What's that? Is that a place? Do they serve that as a drink?
A man asked. Much laughter and back-pounding took place. Wyatt knew they weren't trying to be rude, but by the time the drinks were served and then the nachos, he was tired of them. They were obnoxiously loud, as if trying to call attention to themselves, to their wealthy, tanned, private club selves. Nick got into an animated discussion with them about a teacher they'd all had, who had just retired, and Wyatt tossed back his third beer, or maybe it was his fourth.
"Excuse me, guys. See you later."
He slipped away from the group, and no one tried to stop him. He walked slowly through the small town. It was a hot August night, and people were out having fun. On Easy Street by the harbor, a couple sat on a bench kissing passionately. Lucky kids. Wyatt knew he was being an asshole. He knew it was the heat and craziness of August that was throwing him off, but he couldn't stop brooding over Ariel refusing to make love with him. She'd told him she loved him. She would marry him, but she wouldn't have sex with him. Okay, this morning after she told him about the accident, he had moved too quickly, wanting to have sex, but wasn't that one way people consoled each other when they heard about a death? Whatever, he didn't like himself much, and right now he was enjoying a good sulk. He shut himself in his basement room, took the latest marine and petroleum geology journal, and lay on his bed reading. Soon his emotions disappeared as his mind disappeared into the mysterious solace of science. 20. This summer.
"Look,"
Liam said. Penny was bent over her iPhone, checking for messages. She sensed that the boat had stopped moving. When Liam spoke, she rose to look toward the west. "Oh," she said, enchanted.
"That's Boston,"
Liam told her.
"We won't enter her harbor. Too crowded right now. But I wanted you to see it."
The sun shone down on the towers of the city, a long cluster of skyscrapers seeming to rise from the water. Boats were entering and exiting the harbor. Majestic cruise ships were slowly moving forward among small sailboats, their white sails skimming the blue. "It looks like a golden city," Penny said.
"It does."
"It's magic." Penny couldn't look away.
"I thought you'd like it."
Liam put his hands around Penny's waist and she leaned against him. For a long time they stood together. Occasionally Liam would point out a building that blazed in the sun's light. The tall, blue-glass windowed Hancock Building, the historic Boston Custom House Tower with its clock and triangular peak, the glittering windows of commerce. "I'm in heaven," Penny said.
"Just wait until I prepare your breakfast,"
Liam told her. She settled on the deck, watching the ever-changing view, and Liam prepared scrambled eggs and bacon and brought them to her. "With service like this," she joked, "I may never go home." "I hope you don't," Liam said. She knew she couldn't take him seriously, and really, she didn't want to. Later, he told her to watch her head while he came about, so that the long wooden boom didn't hit her. The sail billowed with air. Liam turned the wheel and adjusted the sheets, and slowly they sailed south, returning to Nantucket. Penny washed their dishes in his dollhouse kitchen sink, then returned to the deck. Now she took pictures without hesitation, photos of the coast, and the sun on the water, and Liam, tall and suntanned and handsome. Liam pointed.
"See that land in the south? We're near the tip of Cape Cod."
"Oh," Penny shook her head. "Almost back." Liam recognized the yearning in her voice.
"We could drop the anchor and go below."
She turned to him, put her arms around him, and smiled up at him. "Yes, please." After they made long, slow, lingering love, they lay curled together in the bunk. Penny asked, "Could we have dinner on land tonight?" Liam shifted slightly but kept his arms around her.
I've got to be in Newport this evening. Maybe another night.
Her disappointment made her brave enough to ask, cheerfully,
"Are you the man with a girl in every port?"
Liam was quiet. Then he said,
I don't have to be.
"We leave tomorrow," Penny told him.
Do you have to?
Liam asked. Penny blinked.
"Maybe not. Maybe I could stay on the island for the summer. I could get a job."
Liam gently put his thumb beneath Penny's chin and tilted her face up so she could meet his eyes.
You should get a job. You should stay on the island.
Friday morning, Jade Marie and Jason came down the corridor from their rooms and met at the elevator.
"Hi,"
Jade Marie said, sounding, she thought, way too chirpy. That was how she felt, though. Penny was gone, leaving Jade Marie and Jason alone, the only two newbies. Jade Marie thought she looked good in her tiny polka dot pink and white dress and flip-flops. Her dark hair was pulled back in a high ponytail. Her face was bronzed by the sun.
Hi,
Jason croaked. He wore board shorts and a rugby shirt and flip-flops. He hadn't shaved yet, and the second-day beard looked good on him.
You look nice.
Thanks, Jade Marie said.
"You look
like I need a shower,"
Jason admitted.
I promise I'll take one after I have breakfast.
The elevator door opened. Jade Marie stepped inside. Jason joined her. And there they were, only two of them, alone in the small space.
"I'm glad you'll be here all summer,"
Jade Marie told him. Jason smiled.
I'm glad you'll be here all summer too.
There are lots of fun things to do on the island, Jade Marie said, and started to apologize for sounding so lame. Jason interrupted her.
I can't wait.
He stepped close to her, close enough to kiss.
I mean it.
The door slid smoothly open. Jade Marie and Jason stepped out, grinning. They walked together to the bistro bar and piled their plates high with scrambled eggs, bacon, and fruit. And coffee. Jason almost inhaled his. They sat next to each other at the empty table.
"Maybe we should go swimming this morning,"
Jade Marie said.
"Just the two of us?
I mean, Penny is off sailing with Liam."
Good idea,
Jason said. The elevator pinged. The door slid open. Jade Marie's parents came toward the long table of breakfast foods. Good morning, chérie. Francine kissed the top of Jade Marie's head. Good morning, Jason.
I've got good plans for today,
Nick said.
I'll wait until your parents come down, Jason, to announce them. You kids might want to go with us.
Dad, I think Jason and I will just hit the beach, Jade Marie said. Her father frowned. The elevator pinged again and Jason's parents arrived. Good morning, sweetie, Ariel said, kissing his cheek. His father didn't say a word to Jason. Clearly, Wyatt was still furious about Jason's decision to work on the island this summer. Jason watched the way his mother fluttered around her husband, bringing him a napkin and extra little plastic cups of syrup for his pancakes. Wyatt showed the intensity of his anger by going Antarctica cold. It seemed that his father lowered the temperature in the room simply by being there.
Okay, troop,
Nick said cheerily.
The plan for the day is to go to Tuckernuck. For you young ones, Tuckernuck is a small island to the west of Nantucket. It's really natural, environmentally pure, trees, grasses, deer, great beaches, and a lagoon. You all will be some of the very few people in the world ever to set foot there.
I don't think I want to go to Tuckernuck, Francine said. The Nantucket Historical Association is giving tours of the most famous old houses on the island, built by whaling captains, furnished with gorgeous antiques. Maybe you'd like to go with me, Ariel? And Jade Marie, too? The men can go tromp through the bushes and use up some of their testosterone. Do we need tickets? Ariel asked. We can get them at the door. Then we can go out to the summer house in Sconset for lunch. It's on the water. The climbing roses will be everywhere on the small cottages. After that, maybe Petty's and Manny's. I'll call Sheila and ask if she wants to join us." Jade Marie spoke up. "Jason and I are going to have a beach day." "Well," Ariel said. "Ooh la la," Francine said, laughing. Nick looked crestfallen.
All right, Wyatt, want to go to Tuckernuck?
Wyatt said, "Absolutely." Sheila lay in blissful silence in her room, drinking a Diet Coke and eating several candy bars she'd bought from a machine yesterday. The sun was so bright it hurt her eyes, but she was too comfortable to get up and pull the heavy curtains closed. But really, she should get up. Or not. This was the rarest of times, being absolutely alone, with no household duties to perform, no sons to root for at some sort of ball game, not even a daughter to attend to. She hoped Penny was having a good time with Liam. She really did. Now that she'd had a night to sleep on it, she understood how romantic Penny's adventure was. Sailing alone with that handsome Irishman, Penny would remember it all of her life. Sheila's friends had warned her that she worried too much, but how could she not? She was raising 4 children in a difficult world, and it was unsettling to be here, where she'd once worked as a chambermaid, and now was the guest of a man who owned a chain of hotels. She liked the other women, although Francine was still a snob. Jade Marie seemed nice enough, especially for a child with Nick's genes. Sheila had wakened this morning and made a decision. Today she would spend in bed. She'd doze and watch television and eat like a teenager. She had this lovely, beautifully furnished private hotel room wrapped around her like her own personal fort. She could rest. Her phone rang. Sheila wasn't going to answer it, and then she thought, Penny. She had to rise from the bed and dig her phone out of her purse. The caller ID named Francine. She let the message go to voicemail. That afternoon, as they arrived back at the hotel, Wyatt was in an unusually good mood. He'd enjoyed the outing more than he'd expected, and felt tanned and toned after their expedition through the high grasses. Most important, as they were in the Jeep riding back to the hotel, Wyatt's phone had buzzed. One of his interns had figured out the problem they'd been having with the computerized printout of an experiment with a specimen of a geologic deposit. It would take a few days to resolve, and by the time Wyatt returned to the lab, it would be ready.
Listen,
Wyatt said.
I want to treat us all to dinner tonight. I'm going to make a reservation for all of us at, say 7:30? 8? Let's go to Dune. Their menu looks interesting, and we can sit outside if we want.
Nick said.
That sounds great, Wyatt. Thanks.
A few minutes later, Wyatt said,
Reservations made. 7:30. I'll text everyone.
Sheila stepped out of the shower, pulling on the thick white terry cloth robe as steam billowed around her. Just as she entered her bedroom, a knock came on the door. She looked out the small peephole.
Penny, you're back!
Sheila threw the door open.
Come in. Tell me everything.
Penny was radiant. The trip was wonderful, Mom.
Liam is wonderful. I want to hear all about it, but first I have to tell you that we're all going to dinner tonight at Dune. Wyatt is taking us.
That's nice, Penny said. I'll have time to shower, won't I?
Yes, but quickly, do you like Liam?
Oh, Mom, I like him a lot. Penny followed her mother over to the mirror where Sheila was brushing her hair.
Ask him to join us for dinner,
Sheila suggested, wondering which dress she should wear. He's going on to Newport tonight. Penny sat on the edge of the bed.
So you'll never see him again,
Sheila concluded. She walked across the room, sat on the bed, and hugged her daughter.
It's all right, darling. There are lots of fish in the sea. I'm sure I'll see him again. I'm going to get a job on Nantucket and he'll be back and forth.
Sheila felt a twinge of anxiety, remembering her summer experience. Still, she said,
"Summer loves are so sweet."
Penny groaned.
"It's not a summer love, Mom, and it's not like love. It's not serious. I'm not going to tie myself to a husband and children so soon. I want to explore, live my life." "I understand, Penny, but let me warn you. Summer loves are often life-changing."
Sheila paused, wondering if she should tell Penny about Frank.
"Well, this summer love isn't changing my life," Penny announced. "He's wonderful, but I'm young. When I was your age, I had a summer love," Sheila began. "Of course you did," Penny said carelessly. "I'm hungry. I'd better go shower and change. What time is dinner?"
Sheila relaxed.
"We're meeting downstairs at 6:30.
All of them, 5 adults and 3 adult children, sat at the long table at the back of Dune's patio. It was the perfect summer night, warm and slightly humid, as fog drifted onto the land from the warm evening sea. Everyone except Sheila was glowing from the day's sun, and Sheila, even with her creamy white skin, was bright-eyed and rosy from the day's rest. The excellent cocktails and food had kept them happy and talkative. Nick described the men's hike over the small wild island of Tuckernuck as if he were Jim Cantori from the Weather Channel. Francine raved about the decor of the house tours, the vases and chinoiserie wallpaper inspired by the whalers' visits to the Pacific. As they were finishing their desserts, Ariel said, "Hey everyone, remember Hump Night?"
"Hump Night?"
Jade Marie repeated.
"Not in that way,"
Ariel replied. She was a little tipsy after all the cocktails and wine and champagne.
"That's what the 4 of us called it when we were working here, because it meant the work week was half over.
Everyone uses that expression now."
"Oh, I remember," Sheila said. "Back then, Nick's hotel looked nothing like it does now. It was under renovation, so there were only a few rooms on the ground floor with lights and electricity, like Sharon Waters' office. We scavenged a table, and every Wednesday night the 4 of us ate dinner there."
Ariel added, "We alternated cooking, men versus women. Obviously, Sheila and I made delicious dinners. The men heated up beans and franks from cans. I'm not sure they ever served anything green." Jade Marie laughed.
"It seems you all survived that summer nicely,"
Francine asked. "Penny, tell us, how was your trip with Liam?" Penny blushed.
"It was perfect. From the water, Boston looks magical."
Jade Marie grinned. "And was Liam magical?" Penny absolutely did not want to talk about sex in front of her parents, so she blurted out the first thing that came into her mind.
"Liam is nice, but he had an odd childhood. When he was a little boy, he was on Nantucket, riding in a car with his father and mother, and his dad's car and another car ran into each other. His father died."
Sheila and Ariel looked at each other.
"How terrible,"
Ariel said.
"What was his father's name? I mean, was he a summer person?"
Hastily, she added,
"Not that it matters." Liam's birth father's name was Harrison, but when his mother married again, when Liam was only 6, she legally changed his last name to Miller."
Sheila frowned.
"Let me get this straight. Penny, you went sailing with Liam Miller, whose father was killed in a car accident on the island when Liam was a child."
Penny nodded.
"That's right. It's so sad. But Liam loves his stepfather. Well, he calls him his father. He always has."
"Very tragic, but happy ending, right?" Francine said, trying to lift the mood at the table.
"Oh God, I feel sick."
Sheila pushed her chair back.
"Excuse me."
She left the table, hurried to the sidewalk, and headed for the lighthouse. "What's wrong with her?" Wyatt asked.
"I'll go with her."
Penny pushed back her chair. Ariel said,
"No, Penny, you stay. I think she ate a lot of sweets today while Francine and I were touring historic homes. Now she's probably paying for it. I'll go with her.
Ariel left the table and hurried away. She glimpsed Sheila far ahead of her, almost running, and even though Ariel called her name, she didn't stop or slow down. By the time Ariel reached the hotel, she saw Sheila vanishing into the elevator. Ariel took the stairs and caught up with Sheila as she was unlocking the door to her room.
Sheila, let's talk, okay?
Sheila pushed the door open, let Ariel enter, then shut and locked the door. She spun to face Ariel.
I never told Penny about Frank Johnson. I didn't want her to think badly of me, that I was a slut.
Ariel grabbed the overwrought woman by the arms.
For God's sake, Sheila, you weren't a slut. You were a young woman in love. You did nothing wrong. A man died.
Sheila pulled away from Ariel and strode to the window, looking out as if she were looking back through the years of her life.
Have you told Hank about... No, I didn't tell Hank about it. I never told anyone but you. I thought it was all over. It is all over. But what if Penny marries Liam, the son of the man who died in the collision?
Sheila, Penny only went sailing with him. Maybe she has a crush on him, maybe they're in love. But it's a long leap from summer love to marriage.
But do you think I should tell her?
Ariel pulled a chair away from the small round table. I can't answer that, Sheila. She's your daughter. The two of you seem close. Also, you made a pretty dramatic exit from the table this evening. Penny's bound to check in with you, see if you're okay.
I tried to tell her earlier. I told her I had had a summer romance, but she wasn't interested. She doesn't seem head over heels with Liam. She wants her freedom, and I understand that. Maybe she'll get serious with Liam, maybe not. Whatever, I don't want to ruin it for her. I'm going to wait a while, see how it goes. Maybe I'm a coward.
Or maybe, Ariel said, you're wise. 21. That summer. Nick left Fanshaw's at 5 as usual, and for the first time in weeks, he wasn't rushing to clean up and then meet Francine. Francine had gone to France. The day had been cloudy off and on, and a breeze puffed through the air. He didn't want to go to the Sand Palace and sit in his room, so he walked to the A&P on the harbor and bought himself some sandwiches, then up Main to Murray's to pick up a 6-pack of Bud. He walked down to the Brant Point Lighthouse. Waves were slapping at the shore. Boats tied to buoys were rocking back and forth. Families were leaving the beach because sand was flicking their faces. Nick found shelter on the land side of the lighthouse. A nervous energy skipped in the air, and Nick liked it. It was how he felt. From the first moment he saw Francine, he'd been in love with her, and she'd made him feel she was in love with him too. He wanted to trust her. But 2 weeks was a long time in the summer. He knew he wasn't really in her league. She probably knew dukes, diplomats.
Hi, Nick.
He turned to see Sheila approaching him.
Hi,
Nick said.
What are you doing out here?
Sheila shrugged.
Walking, getting some fresh air. I can't force myself to spend the evening in that hole of a room.
I hear you.
Do you mind if I hang out with you?
Sheila asked.
Of course not. I have cold beer and sandwiches.
Cool.
For a while they ate and drank in silence. Sheila said softly,
It all looks like a dream world, but that's not true.
Come on, Sheila, sometimes it is. No place can be a dream world all of the time.
I know, Nick.
Sheila cried quietly, tears rolling down her cheeks.
Want to talk about it?
Nick asked half-heartedly.
Thanks, but no.
Sheila sniffed and dried her face with her hands. Nick leaned over and hugged her.
You'll be okay. This too shall pass.
I've always been a good girl,
Sheila whispered.
You're still a good girl,
Nick told her.
You're tired. So am I. Come on, let's go back. We both could use a good night's sleep.
Sheila kept pace with him as he walked. She didn't try to hold his hand. She didn't talk. Once she yawned. At the entrance to the Sand Palace, Sheila said,
"Night, Nick."
She went past his room and into her own. Nick fell on his bed and wished Francine were with him. The August afternoon was punishingly hot and humid. Wyatt and Don Cabot were in the shop. Don was wrenching something on an engine. Wyatt was unpacking new deliveries from UPS. Somewhere in the bowels of the shop, a fan whirred, stirring the air. But the sun was strong through the doors and windows.
"What's wrong with you, son?"
Don Cabot asked.
"You're making a hash out of those gear sets."
"I'm making a hash out of my life," Wyatt grumbled. He hadn't slept for the past 2 nights. When he went to bed, he could hear Ariel going down the corridor to the bathroom. When she returned to her bedroom, her sweet fragrance drifted into his room. He wanted to talk to her. Cabot laughed.
"Girl trouble, is it?"
Wyatt stared at the older man.
"How did you know?" "It's either girl trouble or money trouble. Girl trouble is a summer tradition on Nantucket."
Something about Cabot, how honest he was, how forthright, inspired Wyatt to tell him.
"I want to marry her." "Is she an island woman?"
Cabot asked.
"What? Why?" "Because if she's an island woman, I'm going to tell you to leave her alone or I'll make you sorry you were born."
Wyatt gave his boss a sardonic stare.
"Thanks."
He focused on the cardboard box full of small metal bits in plastic packages. Cabot persisted.
"Well, is she?"
"No." Wyatt shook his head. As tough and perceptive as Cabot was, it took all Wyatt had not to cry.
"Her name's Ariel. She's from Boston. She's really pretty and smart." "You met her here this summer?"
Wyatt nodded.
"She's like an angel. Plus, she's sophisticated, and I'm just a guy from Missouri. She told me she loves me."
Cabot turned back to the engine he was working on. He could do this, quit a conversation and immerse himself in work. Wyatt realized he was pretty much that way too. But not totally that way. He'd never felt for any woman what he felt for Ariel. He'd certainly never asked another woman to marry him. And Cabot was smart. A genius with boats, but smart about people, too.
"What should I do?"
Wyatt asked. Cabot's back was to him now.
"What do you want to do?" "I want to marry her." "How did you ask her?"
Cabot banged something metal with a wrench, and the sound reverberated through the air.
I didn't actually, propose. We talked about getting married. Kind of." "Wyatt Smith, you can't be so stupid. Did you have an engagement ring?" "Well, no. Like I said, we talked about marriage." "So let me get this straight."
Cabot stood up and leaned against a boat.
"You think you love this woman enough to live your entire life with her, and first thing, right off, you can't even be romantic enough to offer her an engagement ring? Why are you being so tough on me?"
Wyatt demanded.
"Because I like you, Wyatt, and I get how you are. Smart but dim. Wyatt, women like romance. They like a memory. If I were you, I'd leave work right now and go buy an engagement ring and get down on my knee and propose properly."
Wyatt nodded.
Okay. Where should I buy a ring?" "Not on Nantucket. They're expensive here, especially in August." "I don't have much money." "Get a ring."
Wyatt nodded. He didn't know what to do next. Cabot sighed.
"It would be cheaper for you to take a boat to Hyannis and find a jeweler in their mall. Go on now, you might make the 5 o'clock high line." "Great. Thanks, Don."
Wyatt raced out of the shop and down along the sandy beach toward the wharves. Sand flew up behind his feet as he ran. He thundered up the rocky shore onto the boardwalk and headed toward Straight Wharf. He could see the fast ferry still at the dock. He ran faster. The sand palace was empty. No one was there, and that sense of disturbed air, a kind of invisible wave from people passing through, wasn't around. Ariel went up the back steps to Sharon Waters' office to use the phone. Sharon had left for the day, and Ariel was glad. She found the phone book lying beneath the phone. Sharon was practical, and drew her finger down the page of C's until she discovered the number of Cabot's Marine. A gruff voice answered. "What?" Ariel almost dropped the phone.
Is Wyatt Smith there?
"No, darling, he left early. He went off island."
The man disconnected. She almost fell as she ran down the stairs. Had Wyatt left the island for good? He wouldn't do that without telling her, would he? The door to his bedroom was unlocked. She threw it open and stood on the threshold looking around. All his stuff was still here. The pajama bottoms he slept in had been tossed on the unmade bed. His plaid bathing suit was hanging from a chair. Books and papers and letters littered his desk, and for one moment Ariel was tempted to scan the letters to see who had written him. But she wouldn't do that, and with a sigh she pulled the door closed. In her own room she dropped her bag on the desk, flopped onto her bed, kicked off her shoes. Where was Wyatt? Why hadn't he told her where he was going? Why should he tell her where he was going? But he was coming back. He had to come back. All his things were here. Ariel kept her clothes on, listening for sounds of Wyatt returning. After an hour, she fell asleep. Wyatt sat on the deck of the slow ferry with the ring box in his hand. Out here, benches lined the wall, and you could lean against the back and tilt your head up and see the entire sky sparkling just for you. He thought it would be cool to give Ariel the ring at night, somewhere outside, under the stars. The ferry was crossing the Sound, chugging along in a grumbling rhythm as it cut through the water. When they neared the harbor, the boat slowed its speed, and in the harbor it crept along inch by inch. Sensible, Wyatt supposed. The ferry was big and the other boats small in comparison, and there was always some nut in a kayak obliviously paddling across the ferry's path. Wyatt thought he'd get to Ariel faster if he dove off the ship and swam to shore. The ferry finally docked at 10:15. As he walked down the ramp and onto the sidewalk, he noticed that his heart rate had increased. It was booming in his ears. Was he nervous? Yes, he was nervous. Science was easier. If one experiment didn't work, you readjusted the variables and tried it a different way. People were harder. You never could count on what they would do. He hadn't counted on falling in love this summer, and certainly he'd never counted on falling like a penny dropped off the Empire State Building. So unexpectedly, so surprisingly, so fast and so deep. He'd had girlfriends before, of course. He knew he was good-looking in his own way, not glamorous like Nick, but not a dog. As a senior in high school, he'd sat in a steamy car on a cold night, listening to a girl weepily explaining how much she loved him and begging him to be more demonstrative, more spontaneous. In college, he'd tried to date only girls who were in his science classes, but those girls were as saccharine and needy as the liberal arts girls. Ariel was definitely a liberal arts type, but she wasn't dreary. She had a wonderful laugh. She liked listening to him talk about his experiments, and she tried to understand what he told her. She wanted to write for a magazine or even fiction, but she had told him she could do that anywhere, practically writing it out in capital letters, "I will follow you anywhere." As he walked, his thoughts were coming fast and piling up on one another, making little sense and not curbing his nervousness. He knew he could understand lust. He didn't think he'd ever understand love. The odd skyline of the nearly demolished building came into view. Much of it was mounds of stone and dirt and wood dumped where a hotel once stood. At the far end, safety lights illuminated the narrow structure housing Sharon Waters' office and the steps down to the Sand Palace. Wyatt fumbled around in his pocket to be sure the ring box was still there. It was. His mouth was dry. He entered the corridor leading to the bathroom and the 4 bedrooms. No sounds. It wasn't even 11, but either people had gone to sleep or were out partying. With Nick, it was certain to be partying. He hoped Sheila was asleep. Wyatt rubbed his sweaty hands on his jeans. It was humid outside, but he admitted to himself that he was nervous. He knocked very quietly on Ariel's door. What if she didn't answer? What if she wasn't there? Or what if she was so soundly asleep it would be wrong to wake her? Then he'd have to get through this night and the next day before he could properly propose to her and end his crazy obsession. He turned the handle. The door wasn't locked, which seemed like a good sign. Maybe she was expecting him. Although he suddenly realized he hadn't told her that he was going off island. Did that matter? Could he do anything right in the bizarre interaction of courtship? He opened the door far enough to see Ariel on her bed. She was curled up in a ball with all her clothes on. She looked like an angel, too beautiful to touch. Wyatt stood frozen in terror. Love was a cruel, piercing thing. A sword, a knife, an arrow through the heart, just like those drawings of Cupid showed. Wyatt could do anything. He could comprehend the solar system. He understood volcanic tephra. But this love thing was so messy, so intricately tied into other bits of life, like need, like adoration. She stirred and stretched.
Ariel?
Oh, Ariel said. Wyatt, come in. I guess I fell asleep. Hot day. Wyatt entered the room.
Hi. Can we go outside, maybe?
Ariel sat up, looking puzzled. Go outside? He didn't want to propose in this humid basement room.
Yeah, get some fresh air. Maybe sit on the bench.
Okay, Ariel said. Let me change into some shorts.
No, you look beautiful. Perfect. Come right now. You'll see.
Okay, mystery man. Ariel got off the bed and went to her bureau. She brushed her hair. Do I have to wear my heels?
No.
He touched the box in his pocket as if it might have evaporated from his sheer nervous energy. Ariel slid on her sandals. Okay. This was taking way too long. What if she refused? Wyatt took her by her hand and walked with her out of the Sand Palace and over to the bench by the flowers.
Sit down.
Yes, sir. Ariel sat. He had to do it now. He knelt on the grass in front of her, held out the red box and said,
Ariel Spencer, will you marry me?
Her smile opened his heart. He rose and sat beside her. Oh, yes. She opened the box. Oh, Wyatt, this ring is beautiful.
You're beautiful,
Wyatt said. He coughed, then cleared his throat.
I need to tell you something. And I know I'm not the most eloquent man, but I want you to know that I fell in love with you the moment I saw you, and I've loved you every moment since. I want to live with you. I want to have babies with you, or not have babies with you. Whatever.
I do too, Ariel told him. She threw her arms around him in a fierce hug. Yes, Wyatt, yes, I'll marry you.
Thank you,
Wyatt said. Ariel's laugh was bubbly and light, and Wyatt felt more intelligent, hopeful, and even more handsome than he'd ever felt before in his life. One thing, Ariel said. I've been accepted into the writing program at the University of Iowa, starting this September. Wyatt froze. He said nothing.
I suppose the drive between Iowa City and Columbia isn't too long. Maybe 4 or 5 hours?
Wyatt still didn't speak.
Wyatt?
Ariel prompted.
You can write anywhere,
he said. He wouldn't meet her eyes.
I'm sure they've got creative writing workshops at the University of Missouri. I thought, I want to get married right away. Get an apartment near the campus. I'll work and you can stay home and write.
Iowa's program is prestigious,
Ariel said. She was on the point of tears.
It isn't easy to get in.
So it's the prestige you want?
No, Wyatt. Well, yes, of course it might help when it comes time to try to sell a story or a book, but
books can take years to write. The work my father and I are doing is of groundbreaking importance,
Wyatt said. Quietly, as if confessing a crime, he said,
Ariel, I need you.
He took her hand in his.
I can't do it without you.
Ariel said nothing aloud, but her mind was racing. She could write at home. Writing a book could take years. Who was she to think she could ever get anything published? This summer, she'd seldom had time to write anything in her notebook. She was young. She needed to learn more, read more, write more before trying to write a novel. And she did love Wyatt.
So, you want to get married this fall?
She asked Wyatt quietly.
I want to get married tomorrow,
Wyatt joked. And now he looked at her and his eyes were warm and loving.
Okay then,
Ariel said.
I'll write the director of the program to tell him I'm unable to attend the program because of an urgent family problem.
Wyatt put his arms around Ariel and held her close. I'll give you an urgent family problem. Ariel laughed.
Let's go home as soon as we can. Let's tell our parents.
Let's get married,
Wyatt said.
Yes,
Ariel replied.
Let's do that.
22. This summer. At the restaurant, the ones left behind sat in confusion.
What was that about?
Penny asked. Wyatt responded with a shrug.
Women, who can understand them?
My mom worries that I'll have a summer love and get my heart broken,
Penny said. Francine smiled. Oh, that happens to everyone.
Mom worries about everything, Penny mused aloud. Especially when I'm driving a car. Look both ways. Don't run a red light. Don't text and drive. Sometimes she makes me crazy.
Nick said kindly.
I'm sure you make her crazy sometimes too.
Wyatt was sulking.
Jason has definitely made me crazy. I can't believe he's giving up a prestigious scientific career to do manual labor.
Jason took a deep breath.
Dad, Don Cabot is a good guy, smart. You know that. I know I can learn a lot from him when I work for him this summer. A lot about boats,
Wyatt shot back.
Nothing about science.
Francine said, Not all children are fated to follow in their father's footsteps.
You can say that, Francine, because you have never had to worry about money or success.
Did you envy me, Wyatt? Francine aimed her charm at Jason's father. I envied you all. When you were living in the Sand Palace, you four had each other. You fought sometimes, but you were like a club, a fellowship, living almost as a family. I didn't choose to be wealthy. I had no idea the dinner I invited you to had aroused such strong feelings. Wyatt couldn't meet her eyes.
I apologize. I suppose I've felt guilty all these years, because Nick asked to borrow $300 to take you to dinner and I refused to loan it to him.
Ooh la la! Francine was completely surprised. I never knew this. She looked at her husband. Nick said,
I never told you. I was worried that I couldn't give you the kind of life you already lived.
Oh, my darling, Francine said. All I wanted was life with you. Penny cried.
They're coming back.
Everyone at the table watched as Sheila and Ariel cut their way between tables to return to their own party. Sorry about that, Ariel said smoothly. Women's problems. Are you okay, Mom? Penny asked.
I'm fine. Sorry to leave so abruptly.
Sheila reached over to pat her daughter's hand. Nick cleared his throat.
In that case, now that we're all here...
He stood up. His curly black hair was glossy, his amber eyes almost the same color as his tan. He looked like a beautiful god.
Ariel, I have something for you,
he announced. Ariel blinked. You do?
I do. Something quite substantial, I think.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it Superman?
Sheila joked. Nick took an envelope out of his breast pocket. He looked at Ariel, but he was well aware of the others watching him.
It's a check for $30,000.
What?
Ariel lurched back, shocked.
We were just talking about it,
Nick said smoothly, smiling.
That summer in the Sand Palace, I asked Wyatt if I could borrow $300 so I could take Francine to a nice restaurant. And I refused,
Wyatt said forcefully.
But your wife didn't,
Nick told him.
Of course she wasn't your wife then. Ariel?
Wyatt's eyes flew to his wife. Oh, this is silly, Ariel said. Nick, I'd forgotten all about that.
You gave Nick $300?
Wyatt's face was stormy. Nick answered for Ariel.
She did. She left before I could pay her back, so I put $300 in a savings account. Later, I put it into stocks. This is what those $300 turned into over 25 years.
Wyatt shoved back from the table.
My wife does not need your money!
Wyatt, Ariel put a gentle hand on his arm.
Why don't you let your wife decide?
Nick said.
She's the one who loaned me the money.
Wyatt strode to the head of the table. Nick stood up, glaring. The two men scowled at each other.
You're a social climber and a money grubber,
Wyatt said. Nick's mouth quirked in a half smile.
Okay, but you are boring.
Wyatt's face turned red.
I oughta...
He raised his fist. I want the money. Ariel rose from her chair. I've been struggling to build an online club for aspiring writers. I want to attend more writers' workshops and haven't had the money. I deserve the money, Wyatt. I want it. Wyatt froze. He turned to face his wife, and he looked completely confused, lost, like a man coming out of a coma.
You never told me you wanted to do that,
he said. I did tell you. You didn't hear, Wyatt said.
You never told me you loaned Nick $300.
No, Ariel said. I didn't tell you. Nick folded his arms over his chest and stared at the floor, trying to keep a taunting expression off his face. Wyatt walked away from Nick as if Nick didn't matter. He stood before his wife, his beautiful, adoring wife, and he was humbled. I'm sorry I didn't hear you. I know I tend to have tunnel vision about my work. You'll never change, Ariel told her husband. I don't want you to. I'm proud of you, of the work you're doing. But I deserve this money, and I want you to be proud of the work I can do. Wyatt nodded. Ariel sat, and Wyatt took the chair next to her. Nick returned to his seat. He slid the envelope down to Francine, who passed it to Sheila, who passed it to Ariel. Ariel put it in the pocket of her capris. Wyatt grumbled.
Where's the waiter? It's time to go.
Jade Marie kicked Jason's foot under the table. Jason shared a glance with Jade Marie.
We're going to skip out now and leave you oldies with the check. It's a beautiful night. We want to walk on the beach.
Nick said,
Wait, we'll be ready as soon as...
Francine put her hand on his. Darling, let them go. The moment they were out of the restaurant, away from their parents, Jade Marie twisted in a circle. Now I can breathe.
Let's go to the beach.
Jade Marie and Jason walked through the town, down toward the Brant Point Lighthouse. They passed boutiques, restaurants, homes, and were away from it all, walking next to a large swath of open land, tall grasses swaying in the slight breeze. The moon was high in the sky tonight, and somehow it made the sky seem even wider, higher, more inviting, as if the universe was larger than they had dreamed. I'll never understand the world, Jade Marie said. Jason nodded.
Haldane, he was a scientist, said that not only is the universe stranger than we imagine, it's stranger than we can imagine.
Jade Marie smiled. I love that. After a moment, she said, I want to go to bed with you. Jade Marie stared up into Jason's face as she spoke. She knew she was being daring, but there, she'd said it.
I want to do more than that,
Jason said, his voice low. Jade Marie's heart thumped. More than go to bed?
Yeah, like make love. Get to know each other. Make love again. Spend lots of time with each other. Make love again. Like that. You know how I feel about you, Jade Marie. You must. I mean, the way we danced out at Cisco's.
You're only going to be here a week.
No, I'm here for the summer. I got a job at Cabot's Marine, remember?
Oh, right. Your father's angry about that.
He's always mad at me. I'm an adult. I can do what I want.
Can you? Are you? I mean, if you're going to work at Cabot's, don't you need to at least let the university know you're quitting? That would be the mature thing to do, not just let your father deal with it.
You're right. I should tell them. I'll do it tomorrow,
Jason said. They came to the beach by the lighthouse and walked silently to the water's edge. Boats dotted the harbor with circles of light. The sea was calm. They sat down together on the sand. Jason said,
You're thinking I came to the island and got all island happy, right? Like I've been transported to Fantasyland?
Jade Marie nodded her head, smiling. Lots of people feel that way when they get here.
Right, like you. You're working here this summer.
Maybe the winter too. I'm ambitious, Jason. I'd like to run a hotel, especially this hotel. The hotel business is what I know, and I like the size of this hotel, the challenge of off-season possibilities. I love this island and I hardly know it, but I'm not set in concrete. Working here this summer will be a good testing ground for me. I've got a lot to learn. And believe me, working for a hotel instead of staying in one is not in any way a fantasy land. She paused, reflecting. One thing I know for sure is that I'm not going to let my work, my ambition, get in the way of being with my family. I mean my husband and children, when I get around to having a family. I'm like my father, yes, but not totally like him.
Yeah, I get that,
Jason said.
When I get married and have children, I want to be in their lives. I want to show up at their recitals and teach them how to ride a two-wheeler bike. I want to be, I don't know how to say it, with the real moments.
Jade Marie said, I know, like when she's got the flu and throws up, or the first time at the dentist, or gets a kitten.
Or a puppy,
Jade Marie said. Yeah. Jason turned to face her. In the darkness, he could see the white flash of her teeth as she smiled, and the way she was looking at him. Slowly, he put his hand on the side of her face. He could feel the warmth of her skin. Jade Marie slowly turned her head and kissed the palm of his hand. He cupped the back of her head and brought her mouth to his. Her breath was warm and sweet. She put her arms around him. He felt her body yielding, and together they lay on the sand, pressing their bodies together, kissing, and kissing more, longer. When they drew apart, they lay side by side, looking at the stars. Jade Marie's head was nestled on Jason's chest.
I came all this way to find you,
Jason said. Jade Marie said, and I came all this way to be found.
We won't be rash and rush things,
Jason said. Right. We'll see how the summer goes.
But,
Jason said, and his mouth went dry with fear and hope.
If we want to make love, we will.
Oh, yes, Jade Marie replied, her voice light. I think we need to have lots and lots of sex before we decide we belong together.
I think it would be a good idea to start now,
Jason said. I think so too, but not out here. Too many people.
Too many people in the lobby of the hotel,
Jason said.
They'll see us, stop us, and want to talk.
Yeah, but Jason, guess what? I have the key to the back entrance. Jason sat up.
You might be the perfect woman for me.
Jade Marie sat up next to him. I certainly hope so. Jason stood. He reached out his hand to pull Jade Marie to her feet. They held hands as they walked back to the hotel. 23. That summer. The summer was coming to an end. Sidewalks were no longer congested with people and baby strollers and dogs. Restaurants weren't overbooked. The Rose Hotel had empty rooms. Occasionally, a cool breeze drifted in from the sea. At the end of the day, Sheila removed her apron and put it into the closet with her supply caddy. She searched for Mrs. Reardon and found her in the kitchen, drinking tea and studying her reservation book, a woeful expression on her face.
Mrs. Reardon?
Even though the door was open, Sheila knocked lightly. The older woman looked up.
Oh, Sheila, come in, dear. Sit down.
Sheila pulled out a wooden kitchen chair and sat. She was braver now than she had been at the beginning of the summer, and needed to be honest more than likable.
I wondered how much longer you'll need me.
Mrs. Reardon nodded sadly.
I'm afraid I need to let you go now. Now? That's a week earlier. Yes, but that charming Mr. Johnson has made a miserable mess of things for me.
Oh dear. I suppose he's not returning to the hotel after his accident?
More than that, Sheila. Never mind that he had booked into September and I was counting on that income, and I turned down reservations because he was staying. Said he was staying. He owes me for a month. Almost 2 months.
Sheila twisted the hem of her shirt.
Maybe he'll send a check once he leaves the hospital.
Mrs. Reardon shook her head.
When his wife came here to collect his things, I told her that he owed me for more than a month. But of course she was worried about him, and I didn't press it because she seemed nice. She told me the police consider both drivers at fault, so she's not worried about legal matters. First of all, she has to concentrate on helping Frank recover. She was too distraught to talk about money.
I'm so sorry. Sheila didn't know how to console her employer. She was on the verge of tears herself.
No, I'm sorry, Mrs. Reardon said. I know I told you I'd give you a bonus if you worked to the end of August, but now I've lost his September reservation and he owes me for August. I can't give you a bonus. My financial affairs are a mess.
Sheila sagged in her chair.
I wish things were different, Sheila.
Mrs. Reardon's tone softened.
I like you. You've been a good, steady worker for me. I don't want to let you go, but it's only a week early, and thanks to that accident... You're letting me go today? I hate it more than you do, Mrs. Reardon said. I'll have to clean the rooms I do have rented, but I can't pay you for another week.
Panicked, Sheila raised her voice.
But that's not our agreement. That's not fair.
The landlady gave Sheila a cold stare.
Life's not fair, Sheila. And this island isn't perfect just because it's pretty. We year-rounders have to scrape to get by in the winter. We count on every penny we make.
She pounded the table with each word.
To help us pay for heat and food in February. If losing a bonus and 1 week's salary is a tragedy for you, you're lucky. I'm lucky,
Sheila echoed. She stood up, shaking.
Goodbye, then. Goodbye, dear. I'm so sorry.
Shattered, Sheila left the kitchen, walked down the hallway, opened the door of the Rose Hotel, and stepped out into the afternoon. She composed herself. What could she do now? It was after 5. At the Sand Palace, Sharon Waters would have left, locking her office with the telephone in it. She'd started doing that when unknown numbers showed up on her bill. Ariel was undoubtedly with Wyatt, and Nick was probably drinking with friends. Sheila was alone on this island, and she always had been. At the corner of Main and Union, behind the Lion's Paw, was a small parking lot with a bank of pay telephones. Sheila headed in that direction, walking faster as she got closer, until she was almost running, as if for her life. She reached the phones. For once, no one else was using one. She took up the receiver from the phone on the end. It was dead, no signal. Sheila let the receiver dangle and hurried to the phone at the other end. It worked. She put some quarters into the slot, dialed the operator, and asked to make a collect call. Hank might not even be there.
Hello?
He was there, his voice as lovely and husky as she remembered.
Oh, Hank,
Sheila cried.
I'm so upset. My employer just let me go without my summer bonus because one of her guests didn't pay her, and it's the end of the summer and people are going home, so I won't be able to get another job, and I don't know what to do.
Hank hesitated. Sheila's heart sank to the bottom of her shoes. Had he met someone else during the summer? His voice came over the phone, sure and strong.
I'll tell you what to do. I'll have to work tomorrow, but then I can take a few days off. You pack up. Day after tomorrow, say goodbye to that place and take a boat to Hyannis. It's about 700 miles from here to Hyannis. About 12 hours. I'll gas up the car and start driving tomorrow evening. I should be there sometime Wednesday morning. You take the boat over and I'll pick you up in Hyannis and we'll come home.
Sheila burst into tears.
Oh, Hank, I've missed you so much. I can't wait to see you.
I can't wait to see you, sweetheart.
She couldn't stop crying.
But Hank, you should come to Nantucket. I mean to see the island, to see how beautiful the ocean is. You could stay with me for a day or two, and then we could go home.
Sheila, Hank said, all I want to see is you.
Business was slow at Fanshaw's. Dead, really. That was probably a good thing, Nick thought, because he was in a shit of a mood. He hadn't heard from Francine. Of course, he wouldn't. She would be too busy with her friends. A postcard would be nice, but that would take time to arrive, and anyway, Francine wasn't the type for postcards. It was early afternoon when the store phone rang.
Nick, it's Jean-Paul Bruel. How's business?
Nick's heart lurched at the sound of the man's voice.
Rather slow,
Nick answered. He tossed the rather in because he thought it made him sound aristocratic. Jean-Paul Bruel chuckled.
I'm not surprised. Listen, I'm here in New York, where they're gearing up for the autumn season. Floods of tourists flocking in to see the newest hits on Broadway, the newest fashions at Bergdorf's, so on. What would you think of leaving Fanshaw's early and coming down to the city?
Nick hesitated. This was the devil's tightrope, the razor's edge. If he said yes, he would be admitting he was the type of guy to quit a job before the arranged date. If he said no, he might endanger his relationship with Jean-Paul Bruel.
I'd like to check with Mr. Fanshawe,
Nick said.
If Steve is staying, it might be fine if I leave early. Good man,
Mr. Bruel said.
Do that. Let me know.
Toward the end of the day, when no one was in the shop, and no one had come in for hours, Nick phoned Mr. Fanshawe. He was nervous, not wanting to provoke an argument, but wanting very much, more with every hour, to leave the store and the island and start his real life in New York.
"Of course you can leave early,"
Mr. Fanshawe bellowed over the phone.
"Most of our customers have already left the island. I'll mail your check to your home address, shall I?"
"Thank you, Mr. Fanshawe." Nick was surprised and delighted, and he spoke with honesty when he said, "I've very much enjoyed working for you this summer, sir."
"Well, you did a fine job. If you need a reference, I'd be glad to give it."
It was odd, Nick thought as he hung up the phone, how exhilarated he was to leave this job, when at the beginning of the summer he'd been thrilled to start it. This was how he was. He learned this about himself again and again. He liked change. He liked challenges. He liked climbing the professional ladder in the same way Hillary liked climbing Mount Everest. He didn't like failing. Entering the humid sand palace felt like failure to him. Ariel and Wyatt, practically swooning with happiness, were engaged. They were leaving the island on Wednesday, going to have a wedding at the town clerk's office in Wellesley, and getting married with their parents attending. Then they would fly to Missouri, where Wyatt would work toward his PhD and teach freshman classes. Ariel planned to make them a cozy home and write brilliant novels in her spare time. Nick wished them well, but he secretly doubted that he'd ever see them again. Sheila was leaving Wednesday, too. Nick had a hollow space in his gut that could be loneliness. He wanted the Sand Palace group together one more time. But no, he didn't really need to see them again. He needed Francine. Where was she? Why hadn't she called or written to him? Had he been only a toy for her? He had thought she loved him. He certainly loved her. He wasn't a natural letter writer. In fact, he knew his spelling was horrendous. He'd been told so many times. Still, he went to his rickety desk and sat down. A pen and hotel stationery headed Rockers was in the desk drawer. He'd never used it before, but he was glad to have it now. The paper was creamy and thicker than what he was used to. He marked out the word Rockers and wrote in Sand Palace. He wrote, "Dear Francine." He stopped writing. He looked at the two words. Oddly, just seeing her name in his handwriting made him feel closer to her. He felt less alone.
"I miss you so much. I think about you all the time. It's odd to know that while I'm here at my desk in this horrid basement room, you are half the world away, probably sleeping in a luxurious Paris flat. I told you that I love you, and I do. It seems I can't stop loving you, even though you've left me and gone to Paris. I'm sure that if I never see you again, you will be the woman I love for all of my life."
Nick put down the pen. He stood up so suddenly his chair rocked backward, falling on the floor. He couldn't stay in this rat hole, blithering away with pity for himself and love for a woman he didn't deserve. Nick left his room and stormed out of the Sand Palace. He headed toward the Atlantic Cafe. People there at least knew his face. He'd flirt with a woman, have a couple of beers, maybe run into some old friends. He'd cheer up. It was still early, but the restaurant was filling up. The AC was a popular place with great food and a friendly waitstaff. Nick found a spot at the bar and ordered a Heineken. He chatted with the guy next to him, an Irishman who'd painted houses all summer and was going home with a fat wallet.
"My girl's waiting for me,"
the Irishman said.
"We're going to marry and get a flat in Dublin and save up for a house in Kilkee, where we come from. Sure, it's on the west side of the island, on the mouth of the Shannon, a beautiful place. You never saw such a beautiful place."
The Irishman nattered on and on about his lovely fiancée and their lovely plans to live on the lovely mouth of the lovely Shannon, and Nick ordered Irish whiskeys for them both and was glad for the slug of heat hitting his lungs. Nick could almost see the dream the Irishman described. and when he had to leave, Nick was sad, as if he'd lost a good friend. He ordered another whiskey. All around him, people laughed and chattered. He was all alone.
"I'd like one of those."
The girl who approached him was Nick's age, more or less. She was pretty and had an easy laugh. Her name was Christy. She was down for the summer, returning for her last year of college in Boston. She'd been cleaning houses with a group of friends and working for a babysitting service most evenings. When she laughed, she tilted her head back, and her wavy chestnut hair fell down her back, almost touching her waist. Her throat was as white as a swan's feather.
"What about you?" Christy asked. "Why are you here this summer?"
"I came with some friends,"
Nick said, and caught himself. He'd come alone. He'd made friends, perhaps, but the truth was, at the end of the summer, he was as solitary as he'd arrived. Often before, he'd entertained a woman with a humorous story about the odd little cave they called the Sand Palace. Now, if he wanted, he could tell Christy about Francine, this la-di-da French girl who thought she was too good for him. But he couldn't say that. He couldn't even think that. He remembered Francine whispering that she loved him, saying that they would be together for a long time.
"I'm sorry,"
Nick said to Christy.
"You're a beautiful woman, but I've been going through a bad breakup. I'm not fit company."
He put a 20 on the bar, stepped off the stool, and left the restaurant. It was quieter outside, but families and friends were in clumps at the juice bar, at the Dreamland Theater, on the streets. As he walked, he watched the others with envy. It didn't matter, he told himself. He'd go back to his room, pack all his belongings, and take the first boat away from here tomorrow. The entrance to the Sand Palace was dark. He'd forgotten to leave a light on for himself. He was used to one of the others having a light on. He stumbled into the corridor, flicked on the bald overhead light bulb, pushed open the door to his room, and went in. The sun was setting early now, but pale light came through his window to illuminate the room. His desk, with his letter on it. His bed, where Francine lay curled, her head on his pillow, sleeping.
"My God,"
Nick said. Francine stirred voluptuously. She peeked through her lashes. "There you are."
"I'm sorry to wake you."
Nick sat on the side of the bed.
"I can't believe you're here."
"I did not like being away from you," Francine said. "I'm so glad you wrote me a letter."
"I didn't send you a letter,"
Nick told her. She laughed deep in her throat. "Yes, but you wrote that letter." She pointed to the desk. Nick nodded.
"I did."
Francine patted the side of the bed. "Sit down." Nick sat. The warmth of her body and the fragrance of her perfume drifted next to him.
"I don't want to lose you, Francine."
"I don't want to lose you," she replied. "We must be careful, you and I. We're so much in love and yet so cynical. We know each other deeply, and yet in many ways we don't know each other at all."
"Oh, I think we know each other very well,"
Nick said.
"But I have to go wherever your father directs me, and I don't know where you'll be or how I'll find you."
Francine was quiet for a moment. "I will go where you go, Nick. You've told me I will be the woman you will love all your life." She saw his confusion and smiled. "In your letter, Nick, there on your desk, and you will be the man I will love all my life." Nick struggled to keep calm. This day, this summer, had been overwhelming. He wanted to tell Francine that, and he wanted to promise her he'd love her forever. And he kind of wanted to tell her that a girl named Christy just tried to pick him up at the AC, and he'd refused because he loved Francine even though he didn't know if he'd ever see her again. He didn't know where to start. Francine watched him. She lay back down on his bed. She pulled the covers back. "Come, my love," she said. "Lie down with me and rest." Nick laid down. She snuggled against him. Francine said, "Let's sleep. Now everything is all right." Ariel, Sheila, Wyatt, and Nick walked to the Brand Point Lighthouse, carrying their picnic dinners and drinks in their hands. They'd discussed going to the AC or the Brotherhood for their last dinner together, but decided instead to be frugal. Besides, it was a perfect summer evening. The wind had dropped and the sea rolled gently like a blue whale turning over in its sleep. The sailboats in the outer harbor looked like paintings. Wyatt had asked the town clerk for permission to have a fire pit on the beach, but she said that wasn't possible. Nick wanted to argue. He'd been to many beach parties with fires, but they were all on the other side of the island, far out of town. Anyway, Ariel had pointed out, it was too hot for a fire. They had spent the day packing and cleaning their rooms. They'd returned their rented bikes and the rented Jeep. Tomorrow they'd catch a boat to the mainland, and the summer would be over. They found a spot near the lighthouse where they could watch the boats come and go. The sand was warm, the tide going out, leaving behind a woven line of seaweed. "We should have brought a blanket to sit on," Ariel said as they settled onto the beach.
"Yes, because we always remember to do that," Nick joked. "We haven't had that many meals on the beach," Wyatt said. "We've had Wednesday nights together, but usually at the Sand Palace."
"And that one time at Francine's," Sheila added.
"Did you invite Francine to join us tonight?" Ariel asked Nick.
"I did. She said she thought tonight should be for just the four of us."
Nick popped open his beer and the liquid hissed into the air.
"She's right," Sheila said. "I'm glad she's not here. She's a snob."
Ariel uncorked a bottle of white wine, poured the wine into 2 plastic cups, and handed one to Sheila.
"Be good, Sheila. Francine is nice. You can't hate her because she's rich."
"I'll drink to that,"
Nick said, touching his can to Ariel's cup.
"Because if you hate rich people, you're really going to hate me."
Sheila laughed.
"I'd never hate you, Nick. And I hope you do get rich."
"We came here with such dreams," Ariel said.
"I wanted to make a lot of money and have an adventure."
Sheila drew a wandering line in the sand with her finger.
"I made a lot of money. A lot for me, not for someone like you, Nick. And I had an adventure. It certainly wasn't what I expected."
"That's what makes it an adventure,"
Nick said.
"It's something you don't expect. I bow to your wisdom, O wise one,"
Wyatt said, opening his own beer.
"Are you glad you had an adventure?"
Nick asked Sheila. She still gazed down and swirled the sand with her finger.
"I suppose I am. I probably grew up a little because of it."
Ariel touched Sheila's arm.
"I bet you realized how wonderful Hank is."
Now Sheila looked up and she was smiling.
"You're right. Maybe this island is like Oz, and after spending time here, I realize how fortunate I am to have Hank waiting for me, and—"
"Don't go any further with that metaphor,"
Nick said.
"I adamantly decline to be a scarecrow, tin man, or lion. Although, actually, I guess I wouldn't mind being a lion."
"You are a lion," Ariel told him. "Nick, you absolutely are a lion."
"Hey,"
Wyatt called to Ariel.
"The lion in Oz was cowardly."
All right. Nick is not a cowardly lion." "Did you ever wonder," Sheila said dreamily, "if the Tin Man was the first robot?"
"No, Sheila,"
Nick said very earnestly.
"I never did." "Are you drunk already, Sheila?"
Wyatt asked.
"Are you still boring, Wyatt?"
Sheila responded.
"Way to go, Sheila,"
Nick applauded.
"You've grown a spine since you've been here."
Sheila grinned, pleased.
"I guess I have." "Have some more wine."
Ariel filled both their cups.
"Really, you guys, when I think about it, we're all lucky."
"Did you write your novel?"
Nick asked.
"I can't believe you remember that I wanted to,"
Ariel told him.
"And no, I didn't."
But I certainly collected plenty to write about.
And you collected me,
Wyatt joked. Ariel leaned over and kissed his cheek.
I did. Oh, that's so romantic,
Sheila cooed.
I'm like you in a way,
Wyatt said to Sheila.
I enjoyed being here. It's a beautiful place. But I know more than ever that I want to work at the university. It's a huge honor and responsibility to work with my father. Ariel, I hope you like Wyatt's father,
Nick said, half joking.
I hope he likes me,
Ariel shot back.
Come on, you guys,
Nick shouted.
We can't all be so pleased with ourselves,
Sheila protested.
But Nick, we should be. I mean, you met Francine and her father here. You made an amazing connection, a kind of miracle. You have to know that.
Yeah,
Nick agreed.
I guess I do. I have been lucky,
Wyatt said.
On the downside, we'll probably have a long-term lung disease from all the mold and mildew in the basement,
Ariel said thoughtfully. I wish I'd gone to more of the island's museums.
You can always come back,
Nick told her. Yes, but will I? Once we get back to our real lives, this place will seem like a dream.
Oh,
Sheila held up her tote bag.
That reminds me. I have photos for all of you.
As she took separate envelopes out and passed them around, she said,
Most of them are of sunsets or yachts, but look, there the four of us are the first night we were here.
We're all so pale we look like we have tuberculosis, Ariel cried.
And here's a photo I took one night before we went to a party. We were dressed to kill.
What a dreamy photo of you, Nick, Ariel said. You've got your bedroom eyes look going on.
He was probably drunk,
Wyatt snapped.
Do you have your camera?
Nick asked.
Why not snap a shot of the four of us now?
Sheila searched the beach for a likely volunteer.
I'll just go ask her.
She walked across the sand to a trio of women with their feet in the water and beach towels around their shoulders.
I'm sorry to bother you,
Sheila said.
But could I ask one of you to come take a photo of me and my three friends? We've worked here all summer and we're leaving tomorrow.
Sure. One of the women stood up and followed Sheila back to the pack. The four of them squeezed together, said cheese, and the woman snapped several shots. Everyone thanked her, and the woman strode away to her friends. Ariel whispered,
You guys, do you know who that was? Jane Curtin.
Right,
Nick agreed.
She was on Saturday Night Live forever.
Oh, and she was in that comedy series, Kate and Allie,
Sheila said.
Wow.
Never heard of her,
Wyatt said. The other three laughed.
You don't see anything unless it's under a microscope,
Nick said.
Look at the boat with the red sail,
Ariel cried, pointing. The four went quiet as they watched a very beautiful schooner glide out of the harbor.
We should all meet again here someday,
Nick said. Wyatt snorted.
Don't count on that happening soon. I've got a lot of significant work to do.
Maybe in 10 years, Ariel suggested.
Maybe in 20,
Sheila said.
Maybe we'll all come back here the day I own a hotel on the island, and you'll be my guests,
Nick said. Ariel laughed.
What a wonderful idea, Nick.
You're such a dreamer, Nick,
Wyatt said, shaking his head.
Yes,
Nick agreed.
Yes, I am.
24. This summer. At the bistro, most of the group were seated around the table eating. Francine prepared a dark coffee for herself and sat down next to her husband. Good morning, everyone, she said. A chorus of replies came toward her. My darling, Francine said to Nick, what are your plans for us today? Before Nick could respond, Sheila said,
I think I'll go home. I miss my boys and I have so much to do.
Ariel touched her husband's hand. Actually, Wyatt and I are considering going home today as well. As you might have noticed, Wyatt becomes slightly neurotic when he's away from his work. and you haven't seen Wyatt when he really gets lonely for his core samples and computers. Nick glanced around the table, shocked.
Oh, I don't think you all need to scatter this morning. We're scheduled for a round of golf at the Nantucket Golf Club. That's the one Bill Clinton played on. And...
Dad! Jade Marie hurried into the bistro. Penny was right behind. You know how Carla was having trouble with her computer spreadsheets? Penny fixed it! The two young women stood beaming at the table, and they almost seemed like twins. One with red hair in a pale green dress, and one with dark hair in a pale blue dress. The women were young, fresh, crisp, and absolutely glowing. They were obviously pleased with themselves. They were like angels announcing a miracle. And wasn't it a miracle, Sheila thought, that her daughter was so brilliant and competent that she could fix a hotel computer? Wasn't it a miracle that Penny was even here on Earth, in all her youth and beauty and hope for the day? Nick studied Penny.
What was your degree in?
Penny folded her hands in front of her and lifted her chin.
Business administration and IT.
Nick said.
I'd like to offer you a job.
Penny asked.
Do you mean for the summer? Here? Temporary?
I'll start you here, Penny,
Nick said.
And yes, here for the summer for a paid internship. In the fall, we'll evaluate whether you should stay here and work or transfer to another of my hotels.
Penny held her breath and looked at her mother. Sheila clenched her hands beneath the table and calmly said,
What a wonderful idea, Penny. What a wonderful opportunity.
That means all three of you kids are staying on the island,
Nick said.
I'm glad.
Wyatt glared at his coffee cup. Ariel put her hand on his arm. One word of advice, Jason, Ariel said. Don't let Penny and Jade Marie share a place with you. Penny and Jade Marie shrieked with laughter. Jason said,
Don't worry, Mom. Cabot's renting me a place above his shop. It's a complete pit. Penny and Jade Marie wouldn't want to enter it, and there's not enough room for two people.
Penny can stay with me, Jade Marie said. She looked at Penny. Hotel rooms go for $500 a night in the summer, so we can't give you your own room. I know I told you the room is small, but we can trade the queen bed for two twins. Penny's face went pink with pleasure.
Wow, thanks, Jade Marie.
Sheila smiled at her daughter.
Well, you have your adventure at last.
I want to see your apartment, Jade Marie told Jason.
Sure,
Jason said.
Sometime.
Now, Jade Marie insisted. It's not far, right? It's above the shop?
Yeah,
Jason said.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Could I go too?
Penny asked.
Sure.
Jade Marie and Jason spoke at the same time.
Use the hotel bikes,
Nick suggested. Good idea, Jade Marie said. She kissed her father's cheek as she headed for the door. I'll be back before you go, Mom, Penny told her mother.
Yeah, me too,
Jason called to his parents as he followed the girls out the door. The air of the room was suddenly silent. Sheila broke the tension.
I remember the first day I was here, I was frantically worried about biking in my bathing suit.
The others laughed. Nick said,
And that was only the beginning of the summer.
Ariel said, When I try to remember those months on Nantucket, it's all a blur.
I have some...
Sheila began and then stopped, her face red.
I brought a few photographs of that summer with me. They're not good photos. I only had one of those throwaway cameras. I guess I was trying to be artsy.
Francine frowned at Sheila. Should we be worried?
Absolutely not.
Sheila took a deep breath.
These are pictures of the beach, hydrangeas, fairies, like that.
She took a thick envelope from her purse and handed the photos around. Ariel and Wyatt, Francine and Nick studied the photos. Their faces lit up.
The Atlantic Cafe,
Nick yelled.
Nachos and brews.
Remember when we drove out to the Great Point Lighthouse? Ariel asked. I almost touched a seal.
Look at the four of us.
Sheila pointed to the photo of the group standing near the base of the lighthouse.
We were so young,
Nick said.
We were so thin,
Sheila added. She slipped another photo on top.
Sharon Waters, still the hotel manager,
Wyatt said.
She's actually smiling. You should show her this picture. What a dump this place was,
Nick said.
You've got to admit I've turned it into a palace.
Ariel pulled Wyatt close and they both stared down at a photo of the four of them at the beach. We were babies.
We were full of hope.
I wish the kids were here to see these,
Sheila said.
They've got better things to do,
Nick reminded her.
They're heading into their own Nantucket summer.
I envy them, Ariel said. Sheila nodded.
Me too.
They sat smiling, together again, gazing down at photos of the summer when they were young.